Call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mochler,
Here.
Graylobe,
Here.
Brady,
Here.
Gilbertson,
Here. Any conflict of interest declarations? Hearing none. Approval agenda with the addition of, was it veterans exemptions, Gary?
yes, under equalization boards.
Still. Or under the county one?
So moved. Could I offer an amendment to that? Do we want to briefly touch on either of those JJZA emails that we got, or should we just save that for the next meeting? I was gonna ask to put that on the agenda, but we could talk about it later.
What emails?
We got that one from Drew, we got the one from, Cindy. They're asking for
Oh,
a different model when we talked about, but we want to just talk about that next week. That's okay too. I'd meant to throw something out, put on the agenda previously, but.
you
What are
be
people's
better if
thoughts?
Dave's here.
Yeah.
Get everybody here.
All right, that sounds good. So yes, move to approve with the addition of the veterans exemption.
So we've got a motion.
Oh, that's a second then. Yep.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Approval of minutes.
So I move to approve with just two tiny amendments. There's a couple places in there. There's one where I think I'm from the JJZA meeting, I think I'm quoted as saying you need a 3-2 vote because it's a Board of Adjustment. It should be a 2/3 vote. So at that point, I was making that point that you have to have 4 votes, not 3. And then I think there's another place where it references that. So.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Are there any visitors to be heard? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin Shira. I live at 311 East Washington Street in Elk Point. As you are aware, I was illegally arrested 3 times through illegal bench warrants. They were actually identity theft created by Magistrate Judge Cassie Sorensen since I was her previous county commissioner in Colorado. Once being arrested but not charged in Clay County, and twice being arrested but not charged in Union County. Therefore, I fear that she will have me legally arrested again, so I filed an application for protection order against her in both Union and Clay counties last month. See attached documents for Clay County Clerk of Courts and Union County. As your Clay County State's Attorney is aware, those protection order requests must be reviewed by a magistrate judge within 24 to 48 hours, and the petition and affidavit for the protection order was submitted and notarized by the Clay County Clerk of Courts on March 6th, 2025. Unfortunately, I did not hear from the Clay County Sheriff's Office that the protection order had been submitted to Magistrate Judge Sorensen, or that it was reviewed and approved by Magistrate Judge Byrne, since she would be the magistrate judge without a conflict of interest. Then I received the attached document and your documents from Circuit Court Judge Cheryl Gehring stating that I must submit a security deposit in order for a magistrate judge in Clay County to review my protection order in the sum of $2,000. I also attached that document. Magistrate Judge Tammy Byrne ordered me to provide a security deposit of $10,000 for the same protection order and affidavit in Union County. That's also attached. Is Magistrate Judge Sorensen more important in Union County than Clay County? 10,000 versus 2,000? One has to wonder, when in fact, in speaking with a state representative for domestic violence in Vermillion and one in Sioux Falls in the network, no one in the state of South Dakota has ever been required to pay a security deposit in order to have a protection order reviewed by a judge. I am sure that your Clay County State's Attorney will agree with me. So I'm asking that the Clay County Commissioners to please have their Clay County State's Attorney look into this situation that may be setting a precedence that your county cannot take back. Since the Clay County Commissioner's budget pays for parts of both the Clay County State's Attorney's Office and the Clay County Clerk of Courts, I thought you might want to get involved in resolving this issue. A reading on this would be greatly appreciated, especially since my husband is now working for the Vermillion Boys and Girls Club, providing education to those children. Thank you for your time and consideration, but most of all, thank you for all you do for Clay County.
Any other visitors? Hearing none. Was Lane coming down?
He is going to be on Zoom.
Are you on, Lane?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Got your Quarterly report?
Yep, I believe Carrie sent it out to everybody and I'll be more than happy to answer questions if you have any.
Looks the same.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Keep up the good work, Lane. Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion passes. Approval of update to the PDM plan.
Yeah, this is to put the project in for those bridge abutments that, looking to get the PDM, grant funding for. Just need approval from the commission to, include this in the PDM plan. And just for the application, we can show it's an approved plan that way.
Move to approve it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes.
Thanks for working on that, Brent, and thanks, Lane.
Designation
Yep.
of Noah Westergaard as a UAS drone pilot.
Yep, Noah's shown interest in becoming part of that, and I just needed you all to, as basically his boss as well, that you approve him joining that organization.
Sounds good to me.
Move to approve. Noah as a drone pilot.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes. Is there anybody on the list that we need to take off then, Lane, or is the list?
Drew Gunderson would be removed.
So do we need to do that, or can you just take him off?
I can just take him off, once you approve. Now that you've approved Noah, then the other is just, he's resigned, so.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, unless you got anything else, I thank you.
Thanks, Lane.
Thank you.
Brent. Fuel quote?
We wanted to get the cruise. Yeah, 5% cheaper than Mullen one. That's perfect counter job.
Move to approve the low bid from Phoenix.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes. Right away application from Blue Peak.
Looked over everything, everything looked good, they sent a check.
I just have one question. When we do the permit, there's 125 for the permit, and then and that doesn't get you one bore? Or does it?
I believe that. I guess it can.
Because they've got 27 bores, which is the
No.
3,300,
And then I think it's just for what the application fee, 125, then.
and then bores. I didn't know if it got you one or not. Okay, it's a permit and so much per bore after that. Okay.
Travis, I know I looked at this 18 months ago. And I think that was my intention of, because I kind of rewrote the some of this as well. And I think it was the permit price is 125.
Okay, and then the bores are
Right,
on top of
additional.
that. Okay. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes. Easement for the bank erosion project on 309.
Yep, me and Ron met with Christopherson. And then, we, and, got them to sign everything, so we can move forward with the NCRS project, standing there on 309 on the Tabernacle Bridge.
Yep.
Okay.
How do we determine the amount that we compensate them?
What's that?
How do we determine the amount that we compensate them?
I don't think there's any.
Oh, there isn't any? Oh, I thought I saw that in there that they're,
Oh, there is.
okay. Oh, maybe in consideration for $1. I think there was some language down in here
Oh,
somewhere that
okay.
we'll give you whatever it's worth to have this ROW, so yeah.
Yeah, they were just happy, just saving the land.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with those, so.
That
Very
seems
happy to
good,
move
just
forward with it.
blind interest, that's a
Yeah.
good way to move things forward,
Yep.
yep, that's good. So do we need to move to authorize you to sign these? So I move to authorize the chair to sign both of these right away, donations.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
thank you for negotiating those and working that all out.
Anything else for me? One more.
Not yet. Hang around for ditch blow. Jump down to vouchers and paperwork. Everybody get to see the vouchers?
Payment of vouchers. Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Is the flat grant gonna take them?
No, I don't think it needs to, so I was glad, Carrie, thank you for including that email in there, that people get a chance to look at that. Essentially, Jill Locken is our contact at Federal Highways, so she's the one that that I'd been communicating with to ask if the money is really there or not really there, and who told us, yes, it's really here, and then we had, we discussed it a bit, and she said at any point we can obligate the funds, and that would be, my understanding is move those into the state coffers. And then that way it's in the state of South Dakota's hands and we know the money's here. So when we initiated that step, that's when we got notice just a few hours later that the funds were actually frozen, the program was frozen. So I wrote back to her after the meeting where we considered the proposals, but mostly we discussed funding and discussed the fact that at that point, it did not appear at all clear that we could get reimbursement if we requested it. So I, with everybody else, voted to not accept any of the proposals at that time, and we notified Federal Highways about that. And she wrote back right away that she understood, but that she believed that the funds would become available again in the future. It's like, okay, it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty these days. So the agenda item today is then in response to her email notifying us that they've received approval to obligate flat funds. They're moving forward with transferring funds to 2 other Federal Highways offices to obligate on flat projects this week or next. And they could transfer the funds to South Dakota as soon as well if the county would like to move forward with this study. So I wrote back to her that this is a decision we have to make with the whole commission, but that I'd come and discuss it. And I also did a little homework in the meantime because I didn't know how far back, if we were to start this back up again, how far back we'd go. She also noted that the funds don't need to be used by the end of the fiscal year. So previously, like when we put the RFP out, we had in there the projects probably need to be completed by October 1st, 2025. That's no longer a deadline. So my thought was I still don't feel really comfortable unless the funds are in the South Dakota coffers to take any real steps forward. So I was going to ask if the commission felt it was appropriate to request that obligation and actually ask the process to happen, make sure that the money makes it over to the South Dakota side. And then my thoughts were that so looking back at the language in the RFP, I didn't know how firm the deadlines were in there as far as our decision-making went. And when I reviewed it, I built in a fair amount of flexibility. So it's language like we expect to make a decision by a certain day. We expect to pick one of the proposals by April 15th, but it doesn't say those as firm deadlines that we shall do that or anything. And then I also looked at the letter that we'd sent notifying the proposers, and in that we do tell them that should the funds become available again, we may revisit this process and take a look at them again. So in light of that, first I want to request the funds be obligated and make sure that they show up. So we could, if people are all right with that, I could make that request initially, and then we could revisit this maybe at the next meeting. But I thought we could, if there was approval from the other commissioners, we could reach out to the 5 proposers and ask them if they would have any interest in still interested in the project, and also if they would be interested in having the opportunity to rework their timeline. If we go forward to this, I want to give them time to do good work. I think one of the things that came out most strongly in the public comment was that we really want this to be focused on constituent input, on public input, and I think given plenty of time to do that responsibly is smart. So that was my thought. And then in that, if we gave them the option to rewrite their deadlines, we could give them a new deadline to provide those by, and then we could have a plan to consider the proposals with the revised deadlines at that point. With the money sitting in the state coffers, we'd have some more confidence that we would get reimbursed. So those are my thoughts on it, and I'm interested in hearing if others are comfortable with at least that initial step of requesting the obligation to see if the money's really there or not.
I'm not.
I would say if the money would be there, I would definitely be interested, because I think, I know a lot of constituents that I talk to are interested in either a kayak launch. I know that has come up a lot, or a lot of the stuff along the river anyway. I've had a mix from people I've talked to about the proposed bike path. But yeah, I guess if it's there, I would be in favor of seeing if the money's there. That's the thing.
How about you, Travis? You're going to be requesting the obligation?
No, I'm not. I'm just. I've never been for it, so the people who live out there and are gonna be affected every day by it don't want it. I've heard that many times from them.
Not categorically. There are people that live very near this project that are excited about it, but
Well, I haven't heard of anybody either. None.
Okay.
I have a cabin out there and I'm for it.
I understand that.
And we did, I was glad that, Dave suggested doing that public input or public discussion on the RFP to make sure that, we got some input on how we should select the proposals. And I did review all those comments before the meeting, and looking back over them, we received something like 40-something comments, and they were from 20 of the individuals that attended, and only 2 of the individuals that submitted comments submitted substantially negative comments about the idea of moving forward with it. So 90% of the people that were there and they were very engaged comments. They were specific. They were saying, we want this focused on safety. We want this focused on public input. We want landowner concerns to be front of mind. We want you to select a proposal that explains how they're going to take into account landowner concerns. So I felt upon revisiting that when we gave people the opportunity to come and weigh in on this, that there was the majority support for it. Are you comfortable moving to table until the next meeting, and we could revisit when we have not a 2-2 split apparently?
We can.
Okay, I moved to table the flap discussion until our next meeting.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
that work?
Oh, it's still on discussion. It's not tabled. Okay. So now it's still up for discussion.
You keep. The people that said they're in favor of it, this is something they want. I looked up the minutes from a year ago, February. And I said then, I'll say it again, this is a want item, it's not a need item. And you're talking about federal taxpayer dollars. I think it's a wasteful project. It won't be safe. The way you're proposing things and those proposals that the engineering firms made, I didn't see any. They paid lip service to it, but it can't be safe without an easement. And you said we don't need easements. So where are you gonna put it?
I think you're focused more on the bike path than you are everything else, though. I mean, we have the potential, it's not just the bike path. I know you keep going back to that, but there's a potential for a kayak launch, there's a potential, which gets us out of the way of the boaters, and if you're out there, trust me, the boaters do not like the kayakers, and kayakers would like to be out of the way of the boaters, and there's a lot of good that could come from it. It's just, I understand your concern with the bike path. And as the cyclist myself, I'm out on that road a lot. I mean, it's all on what you're comfortable with, and I'm fine because I wear a mirror all the time, but, yeah, I think we have, if we can't put some faith into who's doing the RFP, then that kind of hinders us in almost everything we do as a commission.
Well, the boat launch is on what, 462?
So that's one of the four.
Or
things we can spend
452,
money on.
I mean,
The county, that's the county line.
That's one of the four, yep.
There's four boat launch, or four?
There's
kayak
four,
launches?
there's four potential projects that could be studied. So the four potential projects are potentially adding a boat launch on the county line, improvements to Myron Grove. So exploring how the Myron Grove boat launch and public use area might be made more attractive, safe, and accessible to the public. Particularly with some interest in possibly disentangling motorized and non-motorized boat launching. That's an area that was identified as causing people on that utilize both kinds of crafts occasional consternation. So, and then that's also true for Clay County Park, and the boundaries for the study area on Clay County Park include the entirety of the park. So one of the reasons that I'm particularly excited about it is being able to use not county dollars to explore some ways that Clay County Park might be made even more appealing, attractive, functional, safe for our residents. It's the one of the main ways that the public accesses the river. So I think that it's important, and it's one of the areas that I've gotten the most positive feedback on. As a member of the park board, we would love to have access to planning funding like that in order to do robust studies of how we might make the park better. There's, ecosystem management that I would hope we'd even, consider some of make the woods into more like the woods that would be naturally found on the river. There's all sorts of things that would be excited to spend funds on there. And then the fourth project is exploring whether it's possible to site a bike route within existing right-of-ways leading from the city of Vermillion to Clay County. So those are the four distinct projects that we outlined in the RFP. And, there was throughout the process, there have been a lot of people who have expressed really deep concerns that this might be trying to pave the way for the use of eminent domain. And that's the reason why we ended up spelling out in there very clearly that we don't believe at this time that the public has any interest in using eminent domain to site trails in Clay County. So that's the reasoning for that, which I agree is a real challenge. And, I think that's why I can't design a bike route that fits in there, but there are engineers out there that do stuff that I don't know how to do all the time. So that's why I would be interested in having this planning.
Nobody can design a bike route without getting an easement and have it be safe.
And
It's common sense. You can't. The only option is to put it in the ditch. If you're not gonna get an easement, right, there has to be a certain right of way, right?
There's side paths, there's a lot of options for bike paths on, that would be on the edge of the road, whereas as somebody who used to be a part of the South Dakota Bicycle Coalition, there's a lot of ways around at least making it safer. Is anything ever safe? No, but would it make it safer? Absolutely, but again, I think we're fixating on just the bike path, and
And it may be, you know, as I see some possible paths forward. If we went forward with this and we selected one of the proposals. And one of the first thing they do is they identify, no, we won't be able to cite a trail in that right of way. No, there is really strong public opinion against putting a new kayak launch on the county line. So neither of those projects are we going to focus our energy on. We're going to focus it on the two existing public river access points and try to make those the best that they can be. And maybe in that case, you know, the portion of their budget that they had planned to dedicate to those two projects maybe won't get spent. And then we won't request reimbursement for it, and then it'll go back to the feds. And you know, the $250,000 is a hard limit, and that's spelled out throughout the RFP. You know, I don't want to spend any of our local property tax dollars on this, but it also is not, you know, a minimum amount to spend. We might, you know, quickly identify some of those 4 projects as not feasible. In which case, I would, you know, we will be guiding this process, and I would hope that we could tell the engineers, we have recognized that these are, you know, not feasible. So, focus on the other ones and don't burn up your money on these ones. I don't know.
But we still have to write the check.
We have to front the money. Yes. It's a reimbursement.
It's a
right?
reimbursement. Yep.
So Myron Grove and Clay County Park. That's both state property, right?
The portion that abuts the river is state property in both of those, yes.
So I mean, whatever kayak launch you would put in, the state would have to pay for.
That'd be most likely true. Yep. And we have a representative with Game Fish and Parks that's very excited about this project. You know, I mean, part of,
So why don't they just do it?
because we've done it. I mean, I think that probably they're operating within a different system. They've got all their own reasons for why they're pursuing the projects they're pursuing or not pursuing them. But this is a way to encourage them to pursue those projects here. You know, if we put our, you know, put out our neck and do the planning work on this, and then we have a planning document that says these are publicly supported, feasible, cost-effective improvements that would be really wonderful to have at Myron Grove and Clay County Park, then we can go to the state, and when they're, you know, considering projects that they might want to fund, we can say, we already did the planning work for you. Find the money to build this for us. You know, I mean, that's why one does planning studies, is to try to lay the groundwork for well-planned, thoughtful development.
But you usually do the planning on stuff you control.
Ideally, yeah,
But we don't control the state property.
that's correct. But we're partners with the state on that property. Are we not?
How are we? They control it. They have all the say over it.
We own Clay County Park, and we own the majority of Clay County Park.
No, we
And
don't. The state owns Clay County Park, the campground and the rest of it.
the state owns the portion of Clay County Park that goes from the north edge of the woods that include the campgrounds to the river. We own the rest of Clay County Park. Clay County
The farm
Park,
ground is not Clay County Park.
the farm ground is Clay County Park, the shooting range is Clay County Park, the rodeo grounds are Clay County Park.
No, the farm ground is Clay County. It's not Clay County Park. We rent it to.
I can go upstairs and go get the paper documents and bring it back down here.
Then how do we-
rent it to them? Yes.
Yes, we rent it to them, but they don't have ownership in it.
No, the park board. And so the
But
park
it's not-
board is
But it's
the,
not Clay County Park.
yes, the park board manages Clay County Park, which is
Yes,
the
that-
entire,
That is fine. Just because you manage something, I manage a lot of farmland. It's not mine.
it's
in
not the
some-
park board's.
You're saying it's the park.
I'm saying it's Clay County Park.
Okay. This,
I mean,
we're going around in a circle here. Anyway,
yeah,
where your launches are at is on state property.
Yeah.
And the other one's on 452nd, which is on a closed road already.
Okay.
Which can't happen then. So I mean, other than the bike path, we have no control over.
I did hear someone say in a meeting that that road is closed. I haven't seen documentation of that. I should have requested that maybe from the appropriate office, but. I've been battling more, honestly, to be perfectly honest. I've been having to fight a lot more than I expected. For us to receive 100% federal dollars grant, planning grant. That is not going to build anything, that is only going to do planning work and assess public input. My expectation would have been, having done the legwork for 2 years to get these funds together, having listened to a lot of robust input, built it into the RFP we sent out there, had public input meetings where I invited specifically all of the people who have come to meetings and voiced opposition to this project. I called each of them individually and asked them to come to that meeting. We had a productive discussion. So there are a few loose ends that I would have enjoyed spending more of my time on, but instead I've been spending a surprising amount of my time just trying to convince the commission to accept the federal funds that we've been awarded. This is a competitive grant process, and a lot of other projects wanted to be in the position we're in. And so it's just, yeah, I'm slightly frustrated, but yeah, but I is to say, some of the planning funds can be used on the portion of Clay County Park that the county owns. I would hope that the planning for Clay County Park is integrated, so it's all treated and managed as one unit. And so I would hope that planning for improvements to it would consider the entirety of the park, both the state and the county on ground. If you talk to the state about it, they have only glowing things to say about this really wonderful public-private partnership that manages these two pieces of public land at no cost to the county. The state puts in money, but I make absolutely sure in the time that I've been on the park board that every piece of resources of any kind that the county resources, that the park board receives, like if they're going to get some gravel, the county shop's right around the corner. I've been very clear with all our highway superintendents, invoice the park board for that. This is not what the county provides is that ground to support the park operations, some of which public use areas are cited on, some of which the shooting ranges are cited on, some of which the rodeo grounds are cited on, some of which are cash rent properties, some of which are new prairie restoration. You know, the county provides all that. They don't provide property tax dollars, and I'm really proud of that. And I want that to keep going forward. You know, it's a good collaborative working relationship. And, you know, I think us going and doing the work to get this planning funds to try to improve that is sensible. Yeah. If we would like to move on, may I make another motion to table?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, so offer some more comment, please.
Do you want to make a motion, Glenn?
What else do you want?
Well, I would like to consider this with a full commission. I see that we're breaking along a 2-2 line here. I feel strongly that I would not like to just drop this and walk away from it when the big roadblock that we encountered of the federal government not looking like they were going to follow through seems to be removed. And so I'm very interested in moving forward, and I think I've made strong arguments for why it is in our county's interest and the majority of our county. I think it's in everyone's interest. I think people that don't want to see any of these improvements, this sets up a process where they can get those concerns recorded within a planning document, and we can know what things we need to not do. Knowing what we can't do is important, and saying what we think we can't do is not the same as doing actual real public input work to find out what we can and can't do. So invariably, each of us are just talking about the people that we know. When we're saying what the county believes, we're talking about the people that we talk to. So it's just not accurate for any of us to say we know what everybody in the county wants. It is our responsibility to try to find that out and try to navigate that as well as we can. But sitting up here and saying everybody hates this or nobody wants this to happen just is not an accurate statement.
So if Okay. So if we end up tabling it and Dave is here, we're all gonna accept whatever the outcome is, and it'll just be, that's the direction we're gonna move forward then?
Then we can move forward.
Okay,
I moved to table this until next week.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It's tabled till next week. We have full board.
Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that.
If there's gonna be much different outcome, but
I don't know either. And you know, democracy works as democracy works. Sometimes we like the outcome and sometimes we don't.
okay, now we can go back to ditch board. I need to entertain a motion to go into ditch board.
So, second,
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. We're in ditch board.
thank you for your patience, audience.
So now's the time for the bid opening for Clay Creek. Have a bid from Pershing Excavating.
General?
Yep. Got a bid of 321,000.
Bond.
Yep, it's in there. This one's from Pullman Excavation. Bid bond. Got a. Got a bid of 156,330. Beamer Construction out of Yankton. Bid bond. Got a bid of 462,000. One is Weeman Construction. One's got the cashier's check. $1,042.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Quick, lock that down. Really?
What it says.
41,000, and that would make sense for this to be 5%. Say the amount again, 41,000.
$42.
Wow. Don't often see an order of magnitude difference between the high and the low bid, so we'll make sure those are all responsible.
Which they'll check them out.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, now we got the bills for Holtec.
I move to approve both of the invoices from Alteg.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes. I don't think, do I have anything else for this board? Entertain a motion to come out.
Move to come out of ditch board.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, we're in regular session. Now it's time for equalization.
Before you go into equalization, there is, one part that's still regular county board.
Answer to be an application too, outside of, that's first.
Yep, that's first.
The veterans.
All right, so, let's see, organize my papers, sorry.
Right, so this is.
So the first item. Oh.
Thank you.
So while we're still in regular session, the first item I had for you guys is another veterans abatement application. This particular veteran, do you have the spreadsheet that Carrie redacted for you? Because this is
Yes, I
confidential.
think so. There's a few redacted documents in here. Yeah, we do have a spreadsheet. It's a SDCL 106-105 up near the top.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep. Okay, so this veteran, you can see the effective date was August 15th. Again, our deadline every year is November 1st, so when are they effective? So this one was not effective as of November 1st of 23, same as last one. So we're looking at a split of applying that exemption, a 5-7 month split. And I don't have the SDCL on me, Michael, for 10-4-40.
10-4-40. There's something specific you're looking for, do you want me to read it?
That's the, is
Their process of being able to request an abatement.
that the part that had some flexibility with the deadlines?
Yeah, I think it is. Let's see, the annex, let me find the wordage. Okay, this one says, I think the relevant part reads, any application or supporting document for this exemption is confidential. Any veteran who would otherwise qualify for this exemption but fails to comply with the application deadline for the owner occupied classification or the deadline for application for this exemption may petition the Board of County Commissioners to recalculate the taxes based upon the owner occupied classification and this exemption and abate or refund the difference in taxes pursuant to chapter 1018.
So for this one, it wouldn't qualify for the entirety of 2024. Me being relatively new, I'm not sure this is one that you can split, but I provided you the numbers if you would like to approve the abatement for the 5 months this exemption would qualify.
And I would say that the discretionary language in 10-4-40 seems to be pertinent here too. So this is about, seems like they have petitioned properly the Board of Commission, and now you have the ultimate say as to whether or not you're going to recalculate based off that partial. Sounds like they're partially able to request this.
I think I'd be in favor of at least the partial.
That motion.
So moving forward, they would get the full.
Yes, yep.
taxes payable in
Okay.
26 is full exempt. Yep.
So in light of that, I'm going to move that we give them the partial exemption and that they will receive the full going forward.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes. Is that the one, that's the one
Yep.
we added, Carrie, or?
No. So now we have to go into County Board of Equalization for the one that we've added.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to go into the County Board of Equalization.
Move to go into County Board of Equalization.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We're in County Board of Equalization.
So when I gave you guys the county board packet, it's not in there today. We reduced the packet, so you just have the appeals we're hearing today. But you approved, or instructed our office to apply the veterans exemptions as presented. I believe there were 37 applicants. We had another one that did get the application to me before the 15th when we presented that to you as the board, but they did not have their award letter with it, and I can't recommend without the award letter, and they got it to me yesterday. So, having not met the November 1st deadline, state protocol would be that this particular person would have to do an abatement in January. I would just ask that we add them to that original 37, make it 38 applicants, and then we don't have to worry about the abatement. I'll just put it on this year.
My expectation is that we would I would be in favor of providing the abatement. And so therefore, I am in favor of doing this bending of the rules in order to just prevent a needless additional bureaucratic step later.
Second.
Say second?
Second.
Yeah, I guess that was a motion. Maybe tidy it up a little bit. I move that we approve that exemption. So, yeah, for clarity, that's what I intended to say.
Still second? Gary?
Yeah, still second.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes.
All right.
Now I've
No.
got the appeal.
Yep.
For
So-
Farren and Michelle Pratt. What's that? We're in county board.
Yeah.
Yep. Morning.
Morning.
So whichever one of you would like to start.
Do you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just was gonna make my points, but Lena was out to the house and I think that's why it was tabled.
So, I've included the original packet. As you flip through, you'll find a blue spreadsheet. If you needed to reference anything. And then the next page starts with 1900 Dawson valuation history. This would be the additional that I'm,
So I don't know if you came up with anything different after coming out or.
yes, and that we'll get there. So I wrote out the valuation history here. If everyone has found it, it's just a piece of paper. But, so it's basically, I went back through, last time I had stated that we lowered quality and I wanted to make sure that I had everything particular. We don't have TerraScan anymore, which was our original CAMA system, that used a 2009 cost table. We're in ProVal now, which has 2013 Marshall and Swift cost tables. So when the property was viewed after construction in 2019, the construction grade was very good, which is also known as 50. And then there was no obsolescence at the time. Yes, yep, 2009, yep. It sold in 2016 to Farren for $435. And then in 18, there was an owner request for an exterior inspection. At that time, we were still in TerraScan and we lowered the quality to good plus. We updated, there was a portion that we had on basement that was not on basement, it was on overhang, and it still had no obsolescence being on a 2009 cost table. In 2019, added the pole shed, the permit value was 33,725. We then assessed it at 16,190. The appeal in 2021, we had a owner questionnaire filled out and it was still valued in Terrascan, and in Terrascan is where I found the 8% reduction. And it was just on the house. It was not on the land or the outbuilding. At that time, due to the questionnaire, we did remove one plumbing fixture that existed and we added a fireplace because there's 2 fireplaces. So in 2022, we moved from Terrascan and those 2009 cost tables over to ProVal and the 2013 cost table. I apologize, that should say 2013. And once again, lowered the grade and quality from good plus down to good. So that's 2 times where we've lowered the quality of construction. Did anyone have questions on what quality or grade means? It's kind of the materials used and where they fall on your like cost for those materials. So we've seen a reduction in quality twice. I was worried going into the walkthrough that what we would find is that per grading guides, it should be a higher quality. And that's what we found. We filled out our grade guide and it brought it back up to very good with a minus. So it's kind of in between 45 and 50, which would then increase our full and true market value. And I've provided that.
The
It-
following page?
Yes, it should be a spreadsheet that has the current, some sales comps, and then it also has reappraisal on it in red. Okay, so the new value with that updated grading would be 791,509, which is an increase of $35,000 or so. So with that knowledge and understanding, I also pulled 2 more comps that I thought after walking through were more comparable than maybe the sales I had the last time around. I also found one in Union County that is on the county line, not even a quarter mile from Burbank Road. So it is on gravel, but I think it's a little more similar in that it's closer to Elk Point and Vermillion, like our subject property. And our previous median value for sales was 302, now it's 315. And the reappraisal would put the house at 329 and 11 cents a square foot, which is higher than our median. But looking at some of the comps, I think there are amenities to Mr. Pratt's house that do make it more than some of those. All that being said, with a median sale value of 315, our current assessed value at 289 puts him 8.9% lower than the sale median. So I think my recommendation today would be that we not change the value. And then I did try to do my homework last week. I called 5 or 6 different fee appraisers that work specifically in Clay, Yankton, and Union. 3 or 4 of them told me that they have not seen market evidence for a reduction in value on houses in the floodplain. Another told me the key question is yet, right? Because we're saying hypothetically, this 1900 Dawson would sell for this amount on the open market. And then we're trying to answer the hypothetical question of how does having to pay for flood insurance affect that value? And one of the appraisers straight up told me, you're not getting paid enough to do this, because I would have to do a paired sale analysis of, you'd find 2 comparable properties that are identical in every way, one in the flood hazard, one outside of it. State law also says with mass appraisal, you can only go 20 air miles away. Obviously, I'm having a hard time finding those within our county, and then just having the chance to have access to Union, Yankton, Nebraska property records, looking for sales, specifically identical properties that are in and out of the floodplain. It gets
This is already
really
a
muddy.
pretty nice house, you know, it's somewhat unique, I guess is what I mean.
It's
just,
unique.
yeah,
It's
it
a
makes
very
sense that it'd be
sticky
hard to measure it.
situation. So for me in my office, I think my biggest struggle is what precedents am I going to set as a director? Am I going to say, yes, this property in the flood hazard, paying flood insurance deserves an 8% reduction? And if I say that without market evidence without the numbers to back it up, how far does that go? What does a 2% hazard affect it without market evidence? And do I reduce that? What is a grain bin that requires flood insurance? Should I reduce those? And then it spreads to ground. So if the ground along Highway 19 or University Road or Bluff Road, all of that that's flooded, what precedents am I setting for reduction for those if they're in a flood hazard way? I mean, these are things that if they require flood insurance, what is my precedence without market evidence, right? So I still, if we go to the very next one, you've got your assessed versus the reappraisal versus what I would consider an 8% reduction, just putting 8% on everything. And then what Farron is asking for a value. I think I'm just gonna have to stand by, let's leave it as assessed. And then this summer, when I have more than 2 weeks, I would like to look into cost to cure a little bit more. Perhaps have the chance to talk to you about how much your flood insurance costs. And then find a way of either maybe not capitalizing, but amortizing that detriment of how much the flood insurance costs. It's just stuff that I don't currently have knowledge about. And in talking to the fee appraisers, I very quickly learned I have a long way to go. But I think the most fair thing to do right now is looking at the comparables. He is 8.9% lower than the median.
Which, you know, when you shared that, I mean, that did sound to me as in some ways aligned with with Farron's research that this should be worth about 8% less than the same house not in a floodplain. So the comparables you were looking at are not in floodplains, correct?
Correct.
So based on at least that set of comparables, this is roughly 9% less than those. So that's close to the relief that was requested, not the same relief that was requested, but in spirit, I guess.
And
What
that's
are
not
other
to say
thoughts?
you as a board can't decide something different. I just don't know what precedents I as the director would like to.
Am I able to respond? What did you come up with for a new value?
791,509.
And that's supposed to be 90% of true and assessed? or-
100. We assess at market. And that's why I'm not recommending we go to the new reappraised value.
My whole thing is I just want to be treated fairly.
Mhm.
And when I have a certified appraiser, this is somebody who's went through years of training to appraise properties. They have to put comparables in their appraisal. This appraisal was done back in 2020, so 5 years ago. And this is what they're paid to do. This is their livelihood. And they're very qualified. I mean, we have appraisers that had to go through this process, and I think they have to be with an appraiser for 3 years to help determine value. So they're very qualified to do that. So when I look at the comparables for my appraisal that was done at this time, and I took the 2022 assessed values on those comparables versus mine. And at that time, there was a difference of roughly about $100,000 in assessed values. Mine was 100,000 assessed higher quality or higher value, excuse me. Roughly, I think the biggest gap was 110,000. Well, those properties since that time, the 25 assessed values have went up 15.4%, 17%, 20%. My valuation has gone up 50%. So these are like-kind properties by a certified appraiser. So putting that in dollars, today's assessed values, I'm 275,000 assessed higher than those properties. And it started at 100. Now I'm 275,000 higher. And I'm now in a flood zone. Which if you're buying a property, if there's an equal house, one's in a flood zone, one is not, you have to pay insurance, flood insurance, if you have a mortgage. Which one are you kind of probably going to lean towards? The one that has less expense and not in a flood zone. It's just inherently going to have probably a lower value. I do know of a property that just closed in Union County. And I looked that up this morning. And they had it assessed at $307,830. And it just sold in March for $175,000. And it was flooded. But that's a 43% reduction. And that's just one, but I know there's some others. I was trying to look up another one. But it didn't have a historical assessed value because it was included with another 80 acres of land. And so that's my whole point of contention is why are these other comparable homes done by a certified appraiser at that time? The average they went up is 17.5%. And I've went up 50%. You know,
Are those all Clay County homes?
they're all Clay County.
Okay, that's good.
And in close proximity. I mean, they're not up by Beersford. I mean, they're all close proximity to Vermillion. They're not way out in the country. And so that's a difference of what, 33%? I mean, in grading scale, that's a difference between an A and an F, pass and fail. And that's just my whole contention is, you know, I'm in a flood zone. These properties are not, but yet mine went up 50% and these went up 17.5 on average. How is that fair? And I'm just trying to be wanting to be treated fairly.
I think I can speak to that a little bit. If you go back to the blue spreadsheets, these are the comparables that Farron had. They might be black and white,
Or, oh yeah, maybe there are some black and white ones up at the front and then yours are.
and it says comparable properties at the
So
top.
there's the first sheet of compare,
After,
right? Oh, it's not this. Between historic assessment valuations and,
yes.
yeah, all right.
Looks like this.
Oh. Thank you, sorry.
Helps when we're all on the same page. And I think I can speak to the difference in value. These, this first page here, they happen to be in a rural subdivision. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I do know that these carried a much higher first acre value historically. So, we have had to do a lot of work in bringing our rural small acreages in line with what we're actually seeing for market values on those small acreages. Whereas our rural subdivisions, particularly this one being, Pedersen's edition, our Rolling Hills, these had much higher first acre values to begin with. And this last year, they are relatively in line with their market values, whereas our rural small acreages were not. It's something I talked to you guys about during my annual review, how we started out, we were having our first acre was only valued at $33,000 and each additional acre was at $2,000. So for a 4-acre property, that's 6 plus 3 is, you're not even breaking 40,000. Whereas I know that these had a much higher first acre value. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up and write that down. So this last year, what we did is we rescaled our small acreages based on sales, and our first acre value is now 50,000 and each additional acre is 7,500. And that in and of itself, if you have a parcel that's entirely additional acres, you're gonna see a 200+% increase. I think the question that I've been challenged to ask this year is what makes the previous year more valid than where I'm at now, right? Because every year is a new year for us. We're looking at new sales from November 1 to November 1. And then we're allowed to go backwards 5 years, but I think we've seen significant changes in the market over the last 5 years. And hopefully that helps
Yeah, I
answer.
mean, part of listening to both of you, you know, I think that our job is follow state law and be fair and even-handed with everybody. And one of the challenges, I think, because it doesn't address how any one taxpayer feels, is that the amount of increase in valuation year over year is not really relevant. to either of those questions, unfortunately. So you could have a massive increase in the valuation because we suddenly overvalued your property, and we would need to be rectifying that for sure. But if the massive increase was due to the fact that in a previous year, your property was maybe undervalued, then the massive increase is appropriate. And one way to look at it is, well, I guess I got a break for a little while. If it jumped up 50% and that jumping up 50% was jumping to market value, then that's the decision that we need to make. And you can have some cold comfort in thinking, I guess I got maybe a little bit of a break in the time leading up to this. So I think but none of us are professional appraisers, you know, and we're relying on our professional director of equalization. And you know, I think that you know, it does, I think, carry weight that you paid for a certified appraiser and they came up with these valuations. I think that there's weight there, but I do think that although I don't like it, but because, you know, if it was me, it would hurt and I'd be mad about it, you know, if my property went up 50% over the next year. But I think the reality.
50% in 1 year, it went up 50% since 2022.
Yeah.
While the other ones.
Yeah,
were-
I'm just speaking.
So
in
there
general
wasn't
terms,
one
yeah.
big jump.
Yeah.
I mean, these have been consistent jumps,
Clicking up, yeah,
significantly more than other properties.
yeah.
So I disagree with what you said a little bit there, Jeff.
Sure.
So the properties that you had comparables with, and they only went up 17.5%, I think you said.
On average.
Since 22,
Yes.
but total value today, where
Total values, that's why I was kind of bringing that in. So roughly back in 2020, when this appraisal
today,
was done.
what is? With your comparables from 2020, when they appraised your house versus those comparables today.
Mine's 275,000 higher on the assessed value.
Okay.
And mine was 100,000 to start with. Now it's 275,000 higher. So I understand there's gonna be an increase. My whole point is, why is mine 50% and these others are, you know, 17, in the teens on average? And this is a certified appraiser. These are comparable properties that he's held to at that time. And just because I'm on an acreage, is basically what I'm getting from Linnea, is that's why I'm being held to a much higher value, but I'm also in a floodplain now as well. And so those are my 2 points of contention on the valuation.
Well, and I think, you know, I think Linnea's point is not just because you're on a small acreage, but because of the class of people that are on small acreages instead of in subdivisions, because there was an error in the valuation of those properties is the reason why being on a small acreage right now might result in a more rapid increase of valuation for that property than if you were in a subdivision. So that at least that's what I was hearing you say, was that was the reason that you felt that these particular comparables that the certified appraiser pulled in, understanding the workings of, you know, the work that the equalization office is trying to do over the span of several years to try to get everything valued fairly. That there's a mechanism in there that is unfortunately impacting you and all other small acreage holders at this moment unpleasantly, to say the least, I guess. But not that small acreages are, you know, bad. I don't know. What are other people's thoughts? I'm talking too much.
I did look, Baron, 23 to 24 was 2.1% increase. Does that sound right?
On mine?
Yeah, that's the numbers I have from past values.
22 was. Glasses on, excuse me.
Between 23 and 24 is what I was looking at, was only 2.1. And then 24 to 25 was 15.
22 was 6.9, 23, 9.8, 24, 16.06, 25, 17.
Yeah, what page are you on, Glenn? I want to follow.
This is my cheat sheet.
You made, gotcha, thank you.
But
But
So
Farron's math it's the one that your hand's on right
This
there.
one? Okay, thank you.
Pretty steady, you know, 6, roughly 10, now 16, now.
Yeah.
18. So it's been steadily increasing.
but the same can be said for
Yeah, I agree.
hundreds. Whatever properties.
Yep, I understand the market has gone up. just understanding why mine has gone up more than double everyone in these comparable properties that I just didn't pull out. They were done by a certified appraiser that would be considered comparable. And now I'm in a floodplain to boot, which would typically warrant a lower value as well.
So the small acreage change that you reference is just shown in the land percent increase between 2024 and 2025. So that's the additional, what is it, about $37,000 that we see there, the 87% increase in the land valuation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say one appraiser told me one of the few areas they found to do the paired sale analysis is along Yankton Trail Park in Sioux Falls. Is one of the places they found homes of this quality that they could do paired sale analysis, but most of them have been flooded. And I know that's not the argument we're talking about. Farron has to pay flood insurance whether he takes on water or not. But I think that's also something that makes it tricky is all of my other flood hazard zone houses have taken on water in our last two historic flooding events. This one has not.
And I would expect that would affect market value.
Yep.
So that someone considering buying a house that flooded in 2019 versus a house that didn't flood in 19, and they're both in a floodplain, they're gonna prefer the one that didn't flood in 2019, I'd expect, but doesn't affect whether you have to buy flood insurance.
Correct. I would love to say, can I have a month to work on this and this alone? I don't have that. Today is the last day.
This is a today decision. You're gonna get the table. And boy, I'd love to.
And your recommendation then was
Just to leave it.
for this
And
year,
then
visit it next year?
over the summer, it's something that I can sit with Farron and again, look at how the flood insurance affects what percentage of the monthly payment, right? And how that might reduce what someone's willing to pay.
And like you were saying earlier too, that could be a problem. Like you were saying, all the other farmland and
Yeah.
it's subject to this, so. Well, you want a motion? I'll just make a motion that we accept her recommendation to leave this at the
The
756, 147.
Yeah, I'll second Glenn's motion. Yep.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Our consolidated board wants to bring a table over.
We want to close county and move in. When, we'll close county board. I need a motion to close county board and go into consolidated board.
Make a motion to close county board and move into consolidated.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Close same sign. Motion passes. We're in consolidated board of equalization.
So our first one on the consolidated board is Jim Neal. He's not here. So we've got the original packet. It had his letter, my response letter, some comparables that did not have attached garages. And then Melissa and I, after our meeting on the 15th, that Thursday, the 17th, we went by his house, knocked on the door, didn't get an answer, left this letter in over on Rice Street. They don't have mailboxes, so we left it tucked in his door on a windy day and hoped it stayed. And said, between the storm door. My letter said, your letter of appeal was read at the Consolidated Board of Equalization meeting on April 15th. The board decided they would like me to reach out again and gather more details on the current condition of your dwelling. We will stop by your house today and leave this letter. If we're not able to get in touch with you, we will stop again on April 22nd between 3 p.m. and 3:45 p.m. to conduct an exterior inspection and take exterior photos. If you would like to schedule an appointment at a time that is more convenient, please call the office. The next date that the board will meet to hear your appeal is April 29th at 9 a.m. in the county commission room in the basement of the courthouse. If you wish to present your appeal on that date, I know the board would appreciate further information. And then I included the SDCL that allows us to enter property from the outside. So we went back on Tuesday, the 22nd, knocked on the door. The letter had been taken and we did not receive information. So we walked around, took pictures from the front and back and noticed that there was a large wood deck that we didn't have on the record. And then corrected on the sketch where there was an enclosed porch that was on slab. It's not on slab, it's up. It's level with the raised portion of the house. So we took the slab away. Again, this is another situation where after reappraisal, it ended up making the value go up. And so I'm going to recommend again that we just leave it as it was. Oh, we left a hanger as well the day that we were there, yellow hanger on the door.
So
saying
that
we had
didn't
been there.
roll off.
So the original point of this one was, we had some damage and stuff in the basement that was corrected and we're able to verify that either way.
Right. And we do have 4 levels of finish that we use. There's no finish, minimal and indicates there's one type of finish, whether it's flooring, walls or ceiling. The next one would be like rec finish, which would maybe have drop downs or paneling. And then partition finish is the same as it is upstairs. We have them at minimal, so it indicates either just ceiling, wall, maybe floors, something like that. Most of the time that minimal finish is walls.
Feel like you've done your due diligence on this one, so. I'd move that we leave the assessment as you originally assessed it last year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rich?
If they did, that's confidential. It goes through the treasurer's office first, and yes, we would. There's a portion of it that gets exempted back to the year they turn 65. That's how the elderly freeze works. Correct, because it's confidential. Yep.
Because they have to meet an income requirement on that, correct?
Yes.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes.
All right, Troy.
Right.
You want to go first? You want me to go first? Okay, so we went out, visited it, not a service garage. So, oh, I thought I included occupancies for you guys. I did not. So we did end up switching the occupancy on it. And then with that, the occupancy always has a grading guide where if this is what you're seeing on the building, this is what is and isn't included. And then due to it's a weird assessment term called fenestration. It's how many windows, what is the roof line like, et cetera. So due to having more windows than a typical utility storage, and then that we did determine that it needed to go up in quality per our grade guide. So we switched the quality from 30 to 40, which is average to good, and then our condition, just average. I think a newly built property, it's average condition. And so with those changes made, it brought the value down from 260,606 down to 203,939 on the building. And so I guess my recommendation of new value would be all in at 290,132.
That, like the building number was 213,834 on this sheet, or am I looking at the wrong? There's one more, I apologize. So the recommendation sheet is what I was looking at here?
Yep.
Yep.
So all total value, yeah.
Okay.
Did I put it
So
wrong on
the
my
total value matches, but the building listed on the
Oh,
recommendation. sheet-
concrete?
Gotcha, thank you.
Sorry. I should have
Yep.
continued reading. Yep. And again, I mean, if we're gonna compare it to Campbell's, that's sold for 312 4 years ago. And then the utility storage in the back sold for 245. So this puts them in the middle of what we've got for amenities at the old Campbell's and then the other utility storage at 290.
All right, and I see down here Troy will come sign, so you are amenable to this?
I was gonna that day, I talked to her and I got thinking about it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
So what does that figure out per square foot, my building? 50 something?
Let me get my calculator.
4,600 and I think 80 square foot.
56.
Okay.
That's the original. The new would be the 4414.
440, okay.
Mhm.
And she looked at it, she knows it's a cold storage building. There's no business being run out of there. So I guess what I'm saying, if I made it a strip mall, like just say Brady's down the street. What's his tag? 20-something, $30 a square foot? So mine would go down if I had a strip mall in there?
Most commercial buildings have an effective life, right? So there's top of the line, bottom of the line, they depreciate over a certain amount of time. And I believe looking at the guide, it says most is anywhere between 30 and 40 years. So when you're looking at Brady's having been built 20 some years ago, and this one is only 5 years old, you have more depreciation on those. I'm also coming to realize that our strip malls need some work, as evidenced with our next appeal as well. And so I think
it'd be hard to be
It's-
comparable if I was per se gonna have a strip mall. I've got an unfair advantage when I'm paying that much more than say him right down the street. You know, and these are for retail. This is a storage building. I don't want to get into it as far as buildings down the street, because I give you, I think, 4 or 5 comparisons
Mhm.
of what they're paying per square foot. And it's 20 some to $30 a square foot. And I know this building's newer, totally get that. But even if we went further west of the comparisons I gave of Davis Pharmacy, Edward Jones, there's buildings with 2 and 3 times the square footage that are valued less than this building. And they're running retail businesses out of them. It's just hard. That's the problem I got. It's like you're getting penalized for having a newer building in town. And I get it. I know the scale they got on 40 years. I totally get it. But you drive by Campbell Supply and you drive by a newer building, it's still steel on the outside. You can't tell the difference. I mean,
So would it help if I told you Campbell's is assessed at 291,361 and I'm suggesting you be assessed at 290,132? It's only $1,000 difference between you and Campbell's now,
okay, but what's the square footage difference?
but what's the use? They have storage with a small office space.
They're running a
It's-
business out of the front of it.
It's was built in 76
I totally get it.
and yeah, it's,
It's square footage and
so there's
that building is, what was the size? It was twice the size, if I remember right.
It is, yep, 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, and we're 40-some hundred.
Linnea, you've got that, the business as a service garage, dude.
That's the
previous
old
one,
one, that's the
That's-
previous.
oh,
So if
yeah,
you
yeah, she
flip
come out
forward,
with
I,
that.
I switched it to utility.
Yeah. Is that sheet in here?
Yeah. It's right after the beacon sheet.
But see, you see what I'm saying about square footage price, if I was trying to do something like a strip mall, which is not gonna be, but say I did, those guys are all paying less and they're gonna win businesses out of there.
And I have two new ones that are being built for $150 a square foot. The other thing is one sale doesn't make a market. One comparable doesn't make a market. Our guidance is 8. I don't have 8
Right.
sales of strip malls right now. I have 2.
Right.
So, and then with your permit, when you took a permit out in 2020, your permit cost was 200,000. So that would be the value of the building after the land. And so we're saying over 5 years, the building is now 203. When it cost you 200,000 to build. I think it's, again, what precedents am I setting when, with my recommendation? Board, you're welcome to do what you want to do. You can take mine, you can not take mine. You can agree with them, you cannot. But this is what I'm going to stand by because this is what I feel like I can defend.
It's just hard if I was going to rent that spot out and be competitive. It's still just Cherry Street frontage on the same strip there, so.
I think that there's gonna be some pains, unfortunately, in a lot of places over the next 2 years as we get all the commercials all balanced out. Hopefully, that's gonna balance things out in a way that levies might.
We are currently,
might go down a
we are
little bit, but-
currently using a 2011 commercial cost table with market adjustments. So it's saying this is your 2011 cost per square foot. And then we have to go in and do a market adjustment to get it to where it should be.
And
So
it just has
it,
not
I
been a
know
straight
it
line
needs to
since
happen.
2011.
I know it needs to happen.
And you're right, there's not enough sales. It's hard, I get that.
So with the recognition that I understand
Yeah.
your arguments and they do make sense, but I move that we approve Linnea's recommendation on this one. I think that your process was strong, so.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Do you want to know, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reduction to 55,000 is very appropriate. So, yep.
Service garages value 3 walls and then you have to add all the doors on the front of it. That's what I learned. And it doesn't have that situation going on.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes.
Troy, would you like a
Thanks.
copy of this?
Sure.
This isn't the original, so you can take that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Greg and Nikki. Okay, so if you, right after the occupancies is kind of where we start switching. So we've got the retail store occupancy. It's past the beacon sheets in the one spreadsheet. So, one of the things we talked about last time, I believe you guys asked us to table this so that I could look at it as a strip mall, which our occupancy is neighborhood shopping center. So I'm just gonna read that real quick. A neighborhood shopping center is typically a row of open stores comprising a single line of storefronts with individual service entrances in the rear. It is generally a small one-story project that may or may not have a major anchor. Typical anchors in a neighborhood center include major markets, large drugstores or discount stores, and banks. Shopping center costs are for the strip buildings only and include all necessary plumbing and electrical connections to provide for the operations of the satellites, including service areas. Trade fixtures and equipment pertinent to individual tenants are not included. The cost represents group averages of a typical mix of tenants. The following are normally commensurate with the quality and type of anchors they support: the mix of general occupancies found within a center, the display, and the canopy, mansard, overhang, or ornamentation. And then it goes on to break down what a typical occupancy would look like along with the grade guide. When I put all of this property in as a neighborhood shopping center, it went up in value significantly. So I think I'm gonna stick with its large retail. I think that's the best way. Putting it in as general commercial, general retail keeps the value in this kind of 1.5 to 1.7 range versus strip mall had it up over 1.8. And then I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of plumbing that our cost table assumes is in a strip mall. Like it mentioned, there's satellite stores with satellite plumbing and that kind of thing, which you potentially have in like the Plain Talk liquor store, and that side of it could be considered, but the rest of it does not have it broken down into these smaller sections that are rented with their own plumbing service, break room, service area, etc. The other thing that I played with is what I put in as the warehouse showroom. There was a question on if that was the proper occupancy. Again, when I changed that to general retail, it's going to, or general commercial, like the rest of the property is currently, that increased the value again. I think warehouse showroom is the appropriate occupancy because it accounts for the unfinished ceiling, that any offices are going to be more like cubicle based and that kind of thing. I did reach out and, or we found the permit for the new addition. You can see that towards the end of your packet there, the last 3 sheets are gonna be your, permit from the city of Vermillion. The estimated value of the permit was 450,000. And then, we have a breakdown here of just a proposal that does not include any of the interior finish. And the proposal was for 432,977, and that would just be your base cost of the building. It does not include the concrete floor, does not include the separating wall that I'm aware of. Is not. That, oh, foundation and flat work. Thank you. Appreciate that. And then we've got the overhead door and stuff. So with where I was, bless you, with where I was assessing it at. I forgot a page. The addition was 412. Had a lot of papers flying across my desk. I apologize. But I had the breakdown of the different buildings. And if I left it in the back. I tried a few different things. Everything I was coming up with was more. Another thing that was commented on was we haven't reduced the value for it not being on Cherry. And when I dug into it more, we do have a 60% obsolescence on the whole property. So that's in place. That's not something that I need to go in and change every year. It's in there. This is kind of where I'm at with what you guys asked me. Was there other information that you wanted to know from me before Greg and Nikki jump into it?
No. Nikki?
And so what is your position on what you're recommending to the board?
I recommend we leave it.
Did you apply the 60% to the new addition?
No, because when I did that, it has a other market factor and it was making it a negative value, which zeroed out the building of the whole property or the value of the whole property. Again, it's a cost table thing. If I put 60% on it, it was giving me negative 120 for the new addition.
And how does that, tell me that formula?
So what you do is you go in, you assign an occupancy, you sketch in your square footage, and then it says sub and superstructure level adjustments. You go in and it asks how much obsolescence. When I put the 60% obsolescence, it already has the 60. So we're getting a negative 120.
So, but
No,
Yeah,
it,
so is
I
it
know
all-
it doesn't make sense.
is it all
It's
one
a-
entry or this is multiple entries in the software?
So you're saying it already has the 60?
To my understanding, again, I could have brought my ProVal over to let you sit and watch me enter it if
So
you
here-
wanted. It's,
If I can simplify, if you look at our assessed sheet from Beacon, okay? We have increased 30% for the addition, all the way up to today, and you take off the addition, which is not a retail based, it is a dry storage, it is an open showcase room, and a small engine repair shop that's taken a corner section of it. So we have seen our, without contest, we have seen our values increase, our assessed value increase 30%, okay? Since 2023, okay? That's where that's at. If you want to take out, and so she can understand that she has not even applied the 60% and that it is not in conjunction with the other building. The building she has assessed at for the new addition is at 51. The sole building assessed at 76% right now. It's at 76% complete is when she did it as of November 1st, because that's true.
Yep.
Okay, it's assessed at $51 a square foot, which the rest of the building is assessed at $29 a square foot, which has increased 30% since 2023. So we haven't been stagnant. We have been
Stepping up.
keeping up. I'm in real estate. I get it. I understand the cost value. I approached you guys and said sometimes it costs more than what it's worth, and it's called over improvement. I've also heard today that it's best to have 8 comparables. I would like to say in Elk Point, in Vermillion, in Beersford, probably even Yankton, Fiber, my hometown. So are they just supposed to wing it because they don't have 8 comparables? I say in real estate, if you have 1 comparable that's listed on the open market, that's been available for the public for 2 years and finally sold, there is your market value and you don't need 8. I can tell you that your market trend is when you have more than 1 and following that trend and dissecting them out and comparing them to what they are. She's saying there's 2. I'm telling you without looking into it further because I have work to do and what have you. And so I'm trusting her to also do what she's feeling is necessary. We do have a market value on a sale, arm's length, not on Prime Street, on the south side of Walmart, on Bauer. That is a market value. That is arm's length. That is finished. That has multiple HVAC, everything. I'm just telling you that that is market value. And their square footage, which you should have that I used as a comparable, was
$140,000.
is $26 a square foot. Is what she has it assessed at, just the building. I'm not contesting the land. The land is land. You can't make any more. If it goes up in value, it goes up in value. That we can see that through farmland, commercial, residential. So I'm sticking specifically to buildings. The cost will change. It'll go up, it'll go down, whatever tariffs and whatever life does to us. So I'm just saying for the value, And she had that fresh to her on April 10th, 2024, when it closed. The assessed value for that land was, or for the building only, was $26. We're sitting at ours, much older building, so I've heard her depreciation scale that she uses. Our rest of our building, because we do try to stay with the depreciation and try to keep them upkept, so we're not making more expenses or bigger expenses down the road. Our existing building, much older than the one on Bower Street, and all of the other comparables that were used. That one is at $29 a square foot. Our new addition, dry storage, I've already expressed what it is at 51 at 76%.
If you look in the back, there's a legal size paper that has all of the large retail and strip malls compared.
Are they all prime location or off street?
It's everything. I did everything here in Vermillion.
So Larry Brady's both on his side. And how many of those, which one of those have the 60% obsolescence?
Yours. Bauer only has 50.
Would you guys like to see a copy?
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
here.
Yep.
Here you go. I did the cost per square foot two different ways. I did just the building divided by square foot, and then I did the full property divided by square foot. The sale is the sale price divided by square foot.
I
didn't-
think we did address the $2 stores too, when arm's length transaction for parent.
Oh, they are arm's length. I found the PT 55s. I don't have them with me. Unless, of course, the detail is missing, but we sent verification letters and didn't receive anything additional,
So your intention is those aren't like transactions that happen.
which I can't prove to the state that they are not. And so they sit as a commercial sales at 57 and 50%. So my current commercial assessment to sale ratio is at, I think it was somewhere around 60%. So I'm 40% off.
Spent $450,000 to put an addition onto the store. When we did that, I had assumed that we'd be taxed at the same per square foot that we were on the regular, on our existing store, which would be common sense, and especially since we've gone up 30% over the last 2 years. Right now, we're taxed at full value without any location obsolescence. And then next year, we're gonna be assessed at higher than what it cost us to put that addition on. You can talk to AMS, that's my bill for putting on the addition. We don't have bathrooms, we don't have, so I don't know why, I mean, I'll build buildings all day long if I could sell them on the open market for, 30% more than what it costs me to build them. And I sure wouldn't do that on the location that we have. We built it because it was something that we felt we needed, and we felt we could bring to the community.
What are your thoughts on this upon reviewing this?
Well, just looking at it, I mean, you can see that this top section is still off-street. You've got, I mean, I see what I'm trying to figure out like addresses for me. I need to see, I go to Beacon and I can see, I can just click on it and I can see, I can dissect what the price per square foot of a building is, and certainly newer than what ours is. And so respectfully, I don't even wanna. I wanna stay a competent person, and I wanna be able to, if you want me to answer on this, then I want more time to be able to help versus what I've already expressed about the comparables that we've used at the property that's been for sale, that's not on the same location. That didn't even change. And it was just sold. So whether you're chasing a sale, which I don't think happened in this one, with the Bauer one, or you're chasing building permits, I don't think that's reasonable how you start going, making sure your assessed values are, I think you've said it perfectly, legal and fair.
Yeah.
I think the legal part is, she's following by the book, but I think her inequality is screaming very loud and clear.
Well,
And it's not my work. That's the
it's a
hardest
page of
part.
state law that she has to operate within. It's a very complex set of state laws that mandate what you have to take into consideration and not. So your ability to have discretion is pretty limited by.
Like omitting the sale in May,
I didn't omit it
did you consider it?
with specifically your property and compare it to absolutely everybody else.
No, when you assessed our property, and.
I
when you
do-
Had the addition, you had the sale, and I just want to know, you had a sale on the open market, 2 years, arm's length. Did you consider and did you use, and it's off, because you even said they're at 50%. Did you apply it when you were working on ours?
No, because I do mass appraisal. And that sounds like a cop-out answer, but what I do is we go out, we measure it, we come back, we enter the information. And that's all last year's values. We look at our sales. I have my commercial sales. I look at my sale ratio and I see my sale ratio is at 60%. Our bare minimum is 85. I need to go up 25%. Am I gonna do that to everybody in 1 year? Sometimes, but this year it was rural ground. Rural's what went up that much because they were at 59%. So when I look at my urban residential being at 85,
No,
So-
I'm just trying to stick to what I'm here to profess to legal and equal,
yes.
fair.
I hear
And I'm saying the fairness is not gone, and what you need to do, I'm just asking to stick with that. Why wasn't that sale in an open market, arm's length transaction? And it's only one.
So do you want me to now go to every commercial property in all of Vermillion and set all of them at $26 a square foot? Cause that's my one sale.
I think when you get a new.
Cause that's what
issue-
I'm hearing you ask me to do.
I think what I'm asking you to do is if you're going to follow the building permits, and that's on your table and you can see it and you've made it very clear that that's what you're gonna work at. And we have one sale of a commercial property that is about as similar as you can get. I would think common sense without effort, you could consider that when you're doing ours.
Okay, so how do I consider vacancies in my appraisal?
I would
Cause
say
they were,
I would ask the owner.
cause they were fully vacant when it sold. And how does vacancy, cause the other thing that I did was I didn't include it because again, not the strongest in my income appraisal, but if I use a capitalization rate, which is a 40-year effective age, which came from the table for both you and Bauer, we're saying recapture is 2.5%, interest is about 6.75. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But our effective tax would be 2.25. So now I'm using a capitalization rate of 11.52, which to me is a pretty high cap rate. And then I take your current value. I would say your net operating income after expenses, and this would be from rent, would be 189,642. And so my question, which I know you already didn't want to answer because I asked you for income information and you didn't give
You
it to me.
asked for Ace Hardware, and I will make that very.
No,
clear.
I
There are just
didn't.
the issue.
And if I
Yeah.
asked the wrong way, I
No, you
apologize.
didn't, and I even asked Melissa, I said, you want Ace Hardware's profit and loss statement, and Melissa said, yes. And I said, you are not getting Ace Hardware's,
Do
and I
you-
made it very clear. I
Do you
made it.
pay yourself rent? Do you get rent from Smith's? Do you get rent from the liquor store? I'm happy with that, but I need it audited because I can't include debt service. I can't include your property
You
taxes.
have every right to ask. You have every right to ask, and I gave it to you on
You did.
the strip mall.
And
And then I got the call. They were not gonna banter back and forth. And I tried to make it very clear to both you and Melissa, you are not going to receive our profit and loss statement.
And that's
And if you-
fine, but I would love if you gave me rent per square foot because with the way I calculated it
I
out,
expected
the
that you
cur-
already had that, and maybe you communicated
I-
with Greg, because Greg was out of town. You were asking me
I didn't.
for the profit and loss statement, and you were very clear that you needed Ace Hardware's profit and loss statement. That is for the record, and that is true. Melissa
I
went
did.
back to your office a couple times to talk to you about this while I was waiting on the phone, and then you got to me, and I said, you want Ace Hardware's profit and loss statements from their sales, and you said yes, and I said, you need to stop, you need to call the State Department, and you need to get clarity, because that is so false.
Okay, then I would have loved if you had helped me realize that I was asking for rent.
I didn't know you didn't have rent.
I didn't.
I didn't
Do-
know that.
Do we
Why
have,
would-
do we understand it now, though? Do we
Yes.
understand what we need now, though? Because we can argue all day,
Mhm.
but do we understand?
I've
what
always
she's
given it
asking
to her. I didn't know she didn't have the rents there.
Okay,
I
do you
expected
have,
maybe she got it
does
from
she
Greg.
have them now?
So what I've calculated out is at our current value, you should be renting all of the property at $4.50 a square foot. And that's what my value indicates.
The new addition
Plan
did
on
not pay
bringing
rent.
it up, But I think it's important for the board to know that our profit and loss from a business has absolutely zero value in what the value of that building is. And the fact that we were even asked for it, we would have provided it and would have come to the county, and that gets out for public information. I can't tell you the liability. And I'm not gonna bring anything more up because I think she's a nice person. I think she wants to do a good job. I'm concerned.
I can tell you this much, and it is public record, so at least that can be divulged. The city leases space for the liquor store roughly about $1 per square foot.
Okay.
That city liquor store. What the other ones are leased for, I do not know. You can ask us, but that is public record, so I can give that information right there.
And we would have provided it.
And that square footage, if I remember correctly, Greg, roughly 3,200.
I think it's 42.
42, okay. That much of it's right there.
Let me ask this for my clarification here, and this is simplified things for me. So we're okay with the $29 a square foot for the existing building, Nikki? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we've seen it.
Plus
It's a
or minus
30%
That's-
increase. We get it. I mean, we get it.
So what you're basically saying is the eval and increase of $56 is high.
Rent, if just the building, I do it a little bit different. So for me, she's got it, just the building addition is at 51 and just our existing building is at 26. It has increased since 2023, 30% at our existing building, and we have not contested that
But you're not upset about that piece of it, it's just the new appraisal.
of the addition.
Okay.
Yes,
And the appraisals haven't been done for 1+ years since 2001. That's the other concern I would have, obviously, that we're looking at 2001's 24 years of appraisals. That's what we're at. I do want to make a point on that Fowler Street, with the vacancy, how long was it vacant before it did sell? It was vacant. At least Nikki, you know as well as I, especially in being in retail, the market for a vacant strip mall is a lot harder to sell. It's gonna sell cheaper than for vacant over multiple year leases, especially with 5 year lease plus. But that in itself, obviously, is gonna be less value because of that. So,
I would argue it's got a better location than ours.
I would agree with that. It does have a better
Ours wasn't-
location.
ours wasn't-
I would agree with it does have. a good location. I think you guys have done a much better job of upkeeping maintenance on your building though, than what that one was, because that one did have a lot of things that needed to fix and done like that. So I do think, on that note, it kind of, pros and cons on the side. With everything, and I think obviously our commercial, very big deep dive into assessment. The unfortunate part is, it's kind of like pulling your head out and saying, well,
house and, you know, how bad it really, really is, not been assessed. No fault to anybody here, commercial owners, the board, or anything like that. Work hasn't been done, it needs to be done, and it's gonna hold up some eye, and that's the hard part. The only thing I would wonder is how many other properties have seen a 30% increase over the last 2 years.
Everyone. I did an 18% across the board last year and 13% across the
So,
board.
so when she says mass appraisal, she means that
You're saying
all of the ones in
everybody
that class.
30% increase.
Yep.
In their commercial value over the last 2 years. We looked at a lot of properties. I would find that.
But
At least
that,
the ones that we looked
yeah.
at did not have 30%.
That's what I attempted to apply, whether it was applied or not.
But you just said everyone. Now you're saying is it everyone or are you attempting to apply it to everyone?
So what I do is I don't go to each individual commercial property and put that on. I have neighborhoods. So I go into my neighborhood tables, and for each neighborhood that was commercial, I increased it 18% 2 years ago and 13% this last year. That's aside from depreciation, aside from all of that.
I think the reasonable thing to consider that Greg and I would like to consider is get us off the $51 a square foot on the building that the new construction is being put on, because we are at a 60% obsolescence and Bauer is at a 50. I mean, nobody's disputing that our location is different. We're at over $421,000 at 76% completed. Which, if it was fully completed, we'd be over the building permit. And I've said before, people can over improve. People can choose to over improve. Some people in business have to over improve, so they make it their sales. There's no rent coming in from the new addition. It's not a condo. I can't split it off and sell it for $483,000 that she thinks the assessed value is worth. There's no parking there. You can't park there. I can't split it off. But last thing that I want to say in conjunction with that, because I'm feeling a little bit, and I wish it would stay confidential, but when I came the first time, I opened up my mail on Tuesday morning and I got my notification that I had to be here at 1. My stamped envelope was on Friday and the meeting was on Tuesday. I have clients, I have business, I would like to have more notice. Last night, I had meetings in Sioux Falls yesterday afternoon. My husband emails me when I'm out at 5:24. I get a forward email address. He has found the agenda online, and Greg and I are now here this morning to do this. I would ask that something be put in place, that if somebody is going to be on the public record and be on the agenda, that they get and receive due notice. I understand that it's our responsibility to watch, and I have only been watching my mail since I only got it Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock when I was supposed to be here at 1. So I had less than 2 hours, but my file was already together. This time, we got nothing. I would just ask the commissioners to please put something in place that when somebody is to be put on the agenda, that they get a fair share of notice to be prepared, or a visit needs to be done before then to minimize the time, because your time is valuable more so for these type of things.
And it's easier to resolve things, I think, when you send it in an
100%.
office and.
It's not personal, but it is personal to the people that have businesses that are running businesses. It becomes personal to us because it is our livelihood. And to not get notice makes me feel a level of sabotage or intent. I appreciate that. And my mind probably wasn't there to listen to the fine detail. So I appreciate that.
I was expecting that, yeah, between then and now you were, yep, okay, well, we've got a couple of weeks.
I just have one question. You built for 400,000, right? That's what the building permit was for?
450, Greg just,
450.
yeah,
Okay.
I didn't, it was 450. Greg was out of town when I first came and I did not
Okay.
know. And he said it's 450 and she's got the
Yeah.
permit.
You said that it is or isn't it? I'm a little confused on that part. 76. Oh, that part.
So the new edition is 76% complete. The 60% obsolescence, when I tried to apply it to the new edition, was breaking my computer and I couldn't figure out why.
But it's already applied to the main building, but so is when this gets added on, is it tying into the main building, so it's being applied or not?
That was what I was
Yes.
understanding because it kept giving me a negative.
Because it's gonna be under the same parcel. It's gonna be under the same parcel. So it would still apply to this portion that you're saying, it's already applied. That's how she got the negative 120.
And so we are going to new 2024 cost tables here from the 2011. I'd be happy to go in when we get it in our new system with our new cost tables to see if the 60% works now. It's just something that I was not able to make work in our current system.
So the value that we got here, 421 and 76%, so is that, are we saying that when this is completed 100%, it'll be 525?
554, 248, or 554, 248.
That will be the finished value?
According to this.
However,
Maybe a hard time thinking that.
Right.
So-
Bought a building for 450, brand new, it's for 550.
so here's the one, I ran it like 8 different ways. The thing that I considered is when we went there, we just did average, right? So let's scroll back to to the occupancy charts. And for a warehouse showroom store, we chose average, which is pre-engineered frame and siding, plain front, painted walls, some partitions, which it doesn't have, office area, it doesn't have, vinyl composition flooring, and sales cubicles, which it does not have, display, warehouse, and office lighting, small restrooms, which it does not have, and then a forced air HVAC. So what I would suggest, if you want a suggestion from me, is that we drop it to low quality, because I feel like that occupancy matches better. And by dropping it to low at 76%, it would reduce the value at 76% complete to 368,550 or $44 a square foot. And then at 100% complete, it would be 484,935.
Well, I think that sounds, from the numbers we're getting in the finances, that sounds realistic, but let me, before I go to that, tell me about the 60% thing, where does that come into play and how does that affect the actual dollars that would come out of their pocket? Is it 60% straight up, their liability is $80,000 and 60% of 80,000?
Or are you talking about tax liability or you're talking about the value?
Obsolescence thing.
So you, if it's the full market value is $100,000, does the 60% mean that the value of the property is $60,000?
It
It would be 40,000.
It would,
Or
the
over
assessed value would
60%
make
off.
that, if we're talking just about what that assessed value would be, it would be 332,000 would be the 60% obsolescence would bring
Thank you.
full true market value at 554. That's where she's at.
But just for clarification, if it was 100,000,
Hmm?
it makes it
40. No, a 60% obsolescence is 60% off the top.
so that makes it 40.
Yes.
That's not when we originally did this
I know.
years ago.
But-
The way it was set up was it was times 0.6, so the building's worth $1 million, it's actually worth 600,000. I don't know how those are 40%. That's when we did this way back when we started. We paid 200,000 for that building in '92. And the reason that it came down is because they did an economic obsolescence because of its.
I would expect that it would be the 40, if it was 100,000, be down to 40, because if something is 100% obsolete, then you would take all of the value away, right? If it's only 10% obsolete, so just based on that language, I mean, is that what your interpretation is?
10.4 instead of 10.
Right.
It is possible that it was 40 in Terrascan.
And what we're saying is if you take what it costs, or even you use her number at the 554, and you take 60% of the 554, it comes down to 332,000 would be full and true value on the addition. Which gets, I mean, it doesn't get us to where we are currently on the overall building, but that's something we can live with, 332 at full and true.
Well, let me do this and maybe speed things up here a little bit. I'll make a motion to go with what you suggested, was we drop it down in range rate. Take it to 75% of 360-ish.
I have it, I'll have her hand it out. And then you can see the numbers.
In my opinion, I think that seems fair and that probably where it should be at, we're at 75%, plus we've got that 60% thing on there. I think that's more than, I think that's fair for both parties.
It's all of it.
Okay, so
But the 368 is just the.
Yeah, the
additional part.
368 is the
So,
addition, right?
so if we can vote on it, not vote on it, for the sake of time, and everybody's, days here. I'll make a motion that we accept the change to, NEDC 668, 555, or 550. Gives us also time to maybe evaluate things and look at other commercial properties for next year. I guess that's a full motion, that'll be my motion, if that makes sense.
so I have a motion.
I'll second.
Second, further discussion.
Two concerns. One, with next year, then potentially, especially with taking this, we're second reading. Next year.
Right, well, I'm gonna,
There's
Go for it.
entirely the chance, I think what you're asking is what will my market do? And there is a chance that I once again need to do a blanket commercial adjustment next year that is not accounted for in that 484,935.
I think if it's blanket, we realize that things actually might go up, and if it's applied equally and across the board, I think Greg would be okay with that.
If it's applied equally, but she had stated that she tried, it wasn't.
Different,
Yes,
different issue.
yes. No, I mean, if it
Same
is,
issue, same issue.
if
but
it's
we're
applied
trying
to all commercials, if
but-
that's,
But
yeah,
we're also trying to do what's equitable, fair for everybody. and
Yes.
Kind of respond.
I'm-
My other question then is, with it being assessed at a lower grade, what does that do? Well, if I want to buy your building, I see that's assessed at a lower quality.
It's the quality of finish. So it's
It's
not
quality
necessarily
of
poorly
finish.
built or anything. It's just, it's not, it's got
Yep.
not finished ceiling.
And that, and we can do that, for 76% complete at the time.
So it's that warehouse showroom grading guide. This comes straight from Marshall and Swift.
But then next year, the low quality, can't apply to that 100%.
Right, there would not be the room for adjusting quality again.
Look at 76%. Realize that low quality next year, a lot harder to justify because.
No, so
No,
the
it-
It just changes.
so let's see, which page are you guys, where are you?
I just want to make sure I'm getting things clear here.
Yep. So if you look at, there is a grade guide and it says warehouse showroom store across the top. 353 warehouse showroom store. Or, yeah. Okay, so that is our grade guide. When we went, it was incomplete. We just said average, right? We didn't know what the finish was gonna look like. We had description from Greg and Nikki saying no bathroom, etc. But we just said average. And this is the change I'm comfortable making because we know it doesn't have the plumbing and it doesn't have the finished.
but this doesn't have the location. Because you're taking from the existing number that did.
so
Do you want me to go sit at ProVal right now and see what I can do?
so on the 450, if I'm understanding that right, that should have the 60% obsolescence on it. I mean, well, not necessarily applied, it is.
Attached. Is that, yeah, 40%
It's not-
of the full and true value? Is that what you're asking? Or-
Is that obsolescence?
Yeah, so of the
Attached
450,
to the
do we
addition.
have to take that times 0.4? Or take it times 0.6 to get to the actual number of what that
Flip that.
assessed value would be?
We just want to make sure that the new
Yeah.
addition is applied the same way that the old addition is, that historically has been in.
So here's what I'm asking, because this happened to us before. A person came in, like you guys just built the building. They said, this is what it cost me and I can prove it. And we had it $100,000 higher. Well, 2 years in a row with that same person, we lost in Pier. For that reason. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. And I think it applies here that somehow we need to get to that number of what they spent.
Which I think this, right here, if you actually get 75% of what Craig said, 450.
So 76,
316.
so 76% is what they're calling it finished, up 450 is 342.
So that's only 76%. This 368 is only 76%.
342 is 76% of 450.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the 368, 550 on the sheet that she just gave us that
Right.
she's
Yeah.
asking you guys.
Right, but
Yeah,
if you
'cause
take,
are you coming off their building permit value?
well, I'm saying if he's saying $450,000 is what it cost, and we're saying it's 76% done. That's $342,000 is what
So
it should be,
you're concerned about going over that for potential
for this
liability
year.
should we end up in court?
because next year it should be at 450 then.
It's less.
Less that location
So
obsolescence.
that's what I'm wondering. And I'm basing this on what's happened previously. I mean, this was 10 years ago, so, but it happened. I mean, this person said, this is what I spent, and it didn't happen 3 years in a row, because then that's harassment, so. You can only,
Limited it to 2.
Yep.
That's nice, you guys.
yeah. So I just think this is a very similar situation, but that's why I'm confused on the obsolescence. What,
Where does that come into play then?
should I take 342 times 0.6? Is that how we're understanding this?
I would,
Or is it 60% of true value? I mean, which, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Do you have anything in state law on this, Michael?
I have absolutely, I mean, without spending a ton of time researching it, this question coming up at this point, the 11th hour, I certainly don't have an answer.
That's $205,200 on 76%.
Well, I would think it'd be true.
Well, that's true value.
Yeah.
Because 342,000 is the starting, and then if you're gonna take 40% off of that.
something I'm trying to avoid, because I had it come up with a few of our rural appeals, is we would figure the value in TerraScan. And then when we implemented ProVal with 2013 cost tables, or 2011 instead of 2009, whatever the difference was. What happened in ProVal is we couldn't get that value with the new cost table. So we would do this thing called a sound value flag. And you mark it as true tax value, you type it in, you set it, and forget it. And I had a couple rural appeals this year where they're like, it's been 7 years and my values never changed. What's going on? So you have to go in and remove the sound value flag. So if you guys would like to set it at your math, that's fine. We can sound value it for the year. But I would like to know that my cost table is working so that it tracks again with those market changes. If that makes sense. So if you want me to, then go look at ProVal right now.
I don't want to waste everybody's day, but I'm kind of interested.
that-
in hearing that.
That software, that's the name of is that dictated by the state?
No, the state only requires that you use either a Marshall and Swift cost table or a Vanguard cost table. That's the only requirement they have. Ours is Marshall and Swift 2011, administered through ProVal. I essentially call it our calculator. It's computer assisted mass appraisal.
I'm just trying to get to the point where we don't play too much with these numbers and still adhere to what the state mandates.
Yeah, which is why I was thinking I'd be willing to take a 5 or 10 minute recess, go use the restroom if you wanted to try to see if you can get a figure to pop out of it that gets closer to what it sounds like people are feeling is a more fair valuation, but still uses the process that we're using. How do
don't
people
know.
feel about that? Are you guys all right with
Well, you just asked her how long it would take.
We'll see if it breaks it or not. 5-10 minutes.
We'll take a recess for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lydia.
I was getting close though.
Right now. That's what they're doing.
It's just stuff.
That not being applied to this then, is that what it looks like?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, we're still.
Did we, no, we can't.
We're out.
Yep.
So it looks like that 60% that was not being applied.
Yeah.
So let me ask on the 6% obsolete, when, like, how does that get put in place? Is it reevaluated, like?
I really truly don't know where it came from.
It seems like a pretty good number, I mean, as far as business owner license.
I don't know if
Very
that's a,
nice.
Yeah.
I don't know
It
if
is.
that's a state number or that's,
Like I said, Bauer has a 50. I didn't look at anything else. I truly don't know where it's coming from.
Really curious. Really curious on how that's set, how often it's reevaluated. Because my thought process is just like our prime example, as we grow, the city grows, and we have more, patrol trucks and access and things like that, you think that would.
This way a little bit.
Right, right. So
Well-
things might be obsolescent now that are less obsolescent if you have a whole business district grow up around them, and then that becomes no longer
Right,
an
and that's why I
obsolete.
was taking
Yeah.
consideration, especially Power Street, because that whole area, even the last. Years.
That's a
I
good
think
point.
it's almost bird.
And it,
I would be able to, so that'd be Bird Street.
and kind of going back to our floodplain thing. Is there market evidence? Where does that come from? Where did it come from at the time? Has the market changed? I don't know where it came from.
so Nikki, let me ask you a question. Do you know of any other towns, surrounding towns that have? As a realtor, do you ever see that 60% or 50%?
I don't know what I wouldn't be able to like
Okay,
find, I know that there's location obsolescence because appraisers use it, commercial appraisers do use it.
in other counties?
Yes, because
Okay.
it's scientifically proven, statistically proven through Ace Hardware Corporation's AWDR grocery stores. So when we're looking to find locations to to acquire and do new, they do a strategic look and they can give us two locations, both corporations. I can't speak for the Hy-Vees and the Runnings and all what they do at their parent companies, but that we rely on is when we're going in to either acquire an existing hardware store or build new, they help us find those locations, and if we can compare them, they have that in base because they know the traffic flow is less going on, let's just talk about Cottage Street. There are less people that travel on Cottage Street because there are less amenities there. There's a few houses on the same street, but there's less amenities. Versus going on a Cherry Street where you have the whole town to go through. So those are quantitatively figured out specifically through commercial appraisers that use that, and they have functional location they have all of those obsolescence that they use in those reports. We see them when we get commercial reports if we refinance or we purchase. What the corporations do when they're helping us find locations is because they do a traffic count. So when you see people with the things that you drive across, I'm sure those are shared, I'm only expecting. So Ace Corporation and EWG for our grocery stores, they're helping us with that because they have a traffic count. So when you're going in to these places, you can see what's the best fit for you based on what your intentions is to provide there. And do you need to pay more for a higher traffic based on what your service is? Or is your niche a little bit different and you can go into a little bit quieter neighborhood? And that's what we rely on. So just like any other market, they're all going to be different in every town. I don't anticipate anybody's going to be the same.
Scooters, just the same way. I work a lot with scooters and before they'll give you an actual franchise race, they'll send somebody out there, sits there for 2 days and counts every single car to see, make sure that first off, the numbers are there and that they're also coming from the right way to be able to pull in and out of your place. So it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Franchises.
I think probably what Glenn had us earlier, this started way back when, I don't know whether it was I or who it was, but basically, when you look at a building, you say, okay, well, that's the same size building as, or not, but let's just say as Pomida. How come that building's assessed at this when Pomida's assessed at that? Well, the location obsolescence is the reason because the Pomida building or Tractor Supply building is obviously a much more valuable building being on the corner and having Cherry Street frontage than we have no Cherry Street frontage and we're on Cottage Street. So if Pomida comes in and says, why is my building assessed at this when this building is assessed at that? Well, there's a 60% location obsolescence, and that's how that started way back when.
Okay, so let's get back to this. So there is a motion and a second on the table, but
Can I modify the motion with the current numbers? Is that?
you can, if unless Lene, do you want to explain it all, how?
So if you look at the right-hand side, it's got the pricing table and then it shows that obsolescence being applied as a functional. I think what my issue was is I was applying it as an economic instead of a functional obsolescence. Those are different. Functional is there's something about the property that's inherently off. Economic is something outside of the property. I would argue that it should be economic obsolescence because economic says it's not on Cherry Street. But when I was putting it in the economic, I'm not sure where it started on this table or where it applied that. And that's what was causing it to be a negative number, was when I put the 60 in the economic line instead of the functional line.
So we,
This is economic then.
This is functional.
this is, and we came up with 198,832 at 76%. So then next year at 100%, it'll be whatever.
261622 before potential market adjustments. I do want to make it clear that there is potential, there would be market adjustments next year.
As we understand that every year.
Now just to clarify, because we're talking about rest of the structure.
I focused on this particular record with it.
Right now,
saying-
everybody's trying to-
You're like,
I don't
"Oh."
think- Get this guy out of here.
John, after this, you can stop in and watch over my shoulder and I will put them in an economic and show you that it says it drops everything to 0.
So
So
I'd like to I'll amend my motion if possible. To go with the 60 or 76%. Completion as of last year with the 60% added in.
Okay.
As the sheet states.
198,832.
198.32 is the value for the addition
70%.
with those reductions.
At 76.
Yep.
I'll second that. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to point out that it does have the incorrect abstract class. NAD1 is urban residential. This would lump it in with our residential non-owner occupied houses, and I would like it to switch to NADC2, which is commercial, urban commercial,
Okay.
Okay.
What does
which
that-
is something that Carrie and I can work on her minutes to show. So if you agree with also switching the abstract class to NADC2 with a
I'll
new
amend.
value. Okay,
So
thank
is that,
What she just said.
you.
second that. Okay.
Just to clarify, that brings the total to 1.4. 1,423,000.
For the two, say that number again?
1,423,804.
Okay, and that's the total value for the property with 60% applied to both pieces of it. Okay.
Basically what I did is I just added that, change that red number to that.
And that in effect would almost drop that $51 in half.
Be that correct, Lynn?
Yep, 24.9, or no, that's the port. Jesus.
Trust the bear with the calculator.
Yeah. They're always gonna come
31.62,
out ahead.
$31.62 a square foot, 63 cents a square foot with rounding.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you too.
Sorry for wasting.
This is what we got elected to do. God knows why.
Oh, no, take the apology. Easy on the chairs, Greg. Yeah. Because there's nothing else, correct? So I'll entertain a motion to close the consolidated board of equalization.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. We're in regular session. Yeah, thanks, fellas. Please hang around.
Get something done.
Oh, I was gonna spend the rest of the afternoon with Linnea work.
Scott's been super patient.
Yeah. So Michael's got 3 county funeral approvals.
Yes. Let's pick up all our stuff.
Oh, thanks.
All right, you ready for me?
Yeah.
Okay, so back with the departure of Drew Gunderson from his role as wearing three hats, planning and zoning, veterans affairs, and welfare director, the commission asked my office to take over the duties of welfare. Before that had happened, of course, I had discussed with this commission that pursuant to South Dakota Law 716(4), the duties of public welfare become the obligation of the state's attorney once the population hits 15,000 pursuant to the last federal census. We were like 34, 40 people away from that number in 2020 officially. So with that, unless something dramatic happens in the next 5 years, we're going to crest that spot in 2030. So I said, absolutely, I'll take it 5 years early. It's going to become my responsibility later. I'm starting to though see why in 716(4). It also talks about the county commission must allow, shall appoint a special deputy state's attorney to assist in this. Because in the last week, I've probably spent 20 to 30 hours of my time trying to understand county welfare, just specific to funeral assistance. As luck would have it, we hadn't had a request for a cremation in the county in the year of 2025, and within about a 12-day window, I received 3 requests.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never seen 3 on one.
Yeah, so here we are. I've got 3. What I did was the information that was provided to me from the previous welfare director was not very comprehensive as it related to funeral expenses and cremation services. I felt like the procedure that that was being utilized wasn't making a lot of sense to me. So I went and I found what we have is a welfare directors. We have a South Dakota Association of County Welfare Officials is what we have. And I was able to make contact with the past president as well as another board member from different counties who serve in their roles in their counties in welfare, and was able to get my hands on an application for funeral and cremation assistance that isn't universal yet, but it seems like the association is working towards creating one uniform document that will hopefully be universally distributed. But right now it's kind of all over the board. So best I can tell, we didn't really have an application. Some counties utilize a 6 or 7 page application that's really invasive as to the assets and ability to pay both from the decedent as well as their family and friends who are making application. And then one that's a little more streamlined, Cottington counties, and it seems like that's the one that is likely to kind of take over in the days to come is the Cottington County application. Some counties authorize funding for burials as well as cremation. Some counties only do cremation. That's where we're at right now. But it's turned into be, I think, certainly more work than I anticipated, at least off the front end. And most of that has to do with the fact that I got 3 requests back to back to back. I haven't started utilizing a new form yet. I think I have one that I'm likely to implement. It's going to be the one that's Cottington counties with some minor adjustments because they allow for burials as well. So I just need to remove the language for burials and just really focus on cremation services, which is what the Clay County has authorized for years and years.
Well, it's burial. I mean, it's burial. That's what the cremation is a cheaper way.
Sure. And we only allow 1900 regardless, right?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
probably always gonna be a cremation. but
Right. Probably
It's not-
functionally from the direction of the funeral directors, they're only gonna provide the service of a cremation at that cost. That's good information. That's good to know. So that being said, I think that I've got 3 requests. I really just kind of followed what my predecessor was doing, which is just having a conversation with folks. What I did was I ran the names of the decedent in Beacom to see if they owned any property in the county. I ran licenses to see if they owned any vehicles at the time of their death. Spoke to family about the applicant about their willingness and ability to pay. there's three applications, I think pursuant to the way that we've done things in the past, they're all proper. The one does own, the only thing I found was a 2006 Grand Marquis, Mercury Grand Marquis owned by, what's noted as case number CW 25-003. Family report said it's nothing more than scrap metal, and that's the only asset. Everything else, all of the applicants, as you'll see on the forms that I provided you, appear, to the best of my knowledge, just from conversations, are eligible. Medicaid or disability, Social Security, all of that was in place according to the statements made by who would be considered the applicant. Going forward, my intention will be to then, with this application, will be to require the applicant to provide some amount of proof of that. That's currently not being requested. So
And so what occurs if, so if there are no family members, there's no living human being that's connected to the person? I feel like those have come to us in the past where like, the building owner or something was like, they were in a nursing home on Medicaid and the nursing home reached out or something. So like, how will you approach it if we don't have a person to talk to?
yeah, if there isn't a person, I think the applicant, right, likely becomes a friend an acquaintance, and statute, I think, defines it as one of those terms. And really, I think all you can do is ask them for that documentation, and certainly understanding the relationship with that person may not be able to. Ultimately, then I'm just gonna bring you the information that I'm able to muster up, and then, and then it's up to the discretion of the commission.
Are you asking who fills that out then?
Yeah.
Because wouldn't that be then,
Just if you're asking for more robust documentation that they might not have access to, like
Well,
right.
for bank statements or something like.
Now, all three of these applicants were family and could have provided
Yeah.
that.
but like in your instance, I would assume if they're in the home
Mhm.
and there isn't anybody else, most of the time they're awarded the state.
Right.
Because they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So wouldn't the funeral home, or not the funeral home, the nursing home,
They may, depending on
Wouldn't
if
they
they've
be-
assumed guardianship or if they've, kind of if they're their representative payee or if they're their guardianship. It depends on the fiduciary relationship, if there is one between them. So it's possible. It's also possible that, just no one is willing to come forward, which could also happen, where even if they're not considered a ward of the state, where no one's willing to, claim the body, if you would.
Yeah.
So those, I think you take those on a case by case basis. I'm gonna ask that this application be filled out by whoever is requesting, and I'll provide you with as much information as I can. Going forward, certainly in these three cases, they were family members, and could have provided more robust applications. But because of the time sensitive nature of it and the fact that I don't currently have anything in place, I think that my recommendation for you is to make a decision based off of the information that I have, and I followed the procedure that was being put, that had been in place before, and with an aim of modifying that procedure in the future.
Well, this is very similar to what we've seen before and the degree of detail we've had on them before. And in the time I've been on commission, we've approved every request that's come before us. I move to approve these three. It's always sad when we have them.
Second.
a motion and a second, any further discussion? Because now what will we do? Put a lien against the state?
We have the ability to put a lien against the estate. And that's good for like 2 years, is with my understanding. And we also have the ability to put a lien against a spouse. And there is no spouse in any of these situations. And I imagine they do meet the definition, best I can tell, is indigent. I doubt there are any, with the exception of this Mercury Grand Marquis, if we wanted to place a lien, going, it's possible to do that on that item. Now, whether or not you also have to contemplate going through that process is gonna cost money. Probate's gonna cost money just to file that documentation with the court. So it's even possible that
You could end up money behind.
that this Grand Marquis there'd still be nothing left in the estate to ultimately
It
satisfy.
may well be worth $200. If so, don't spend 3 hours on this. Yeah.
Correct.
Back,
But
back before any of us, the commission had said that we were not going to bother to put a lien on county funerals because the likelihood of actually recovering anything was pretty low.
we put it
Yeah.
on since I've been on, or put it back on, I should say, because it is our responsibility to do that. Because we're supposed to collect assets that are there to offset the $1,900.
Do we want to deal with auctioning off this marquee? I mean,
Well, I think you just scrap it out. I mean, if that's all it is.
Yeah, now again, ultimately, it's, and I don't think it's as simple as that becomes the property of the county. It still has to go through the probate, and if the assets still level out to zero or less than zero, we're still gonna be at an empty lien.
Unless they signed it over to us,
Right,
because there is, well, they'd have to go through that process to get ownership first.
correct. Yeah, it would go through the estate. I mean, I think it's in the decedent's name, so it would go into the estate, and then it'd have to pass according to the rules of intestacy because there is no will. So that it's going to be complicated, right? I mean, certainly isn't an easy procedure. I think it's a lot, I would equate this very similarly to, expenses that we have, from public defender work for indigent folks is, we put liens on those situations, they go uncollected in almost every sense. And I imagine we're gonna run into the same thing with county burials.
What, with this card, does it just get impounded? I
Uh,
assume, or?
No, it'll stay with the estate. And so if we place a lien, it would have to be, you'd go through the probate process, and if we have a lien, it would be one of the potential creditors that could try to collect on the estate if there is money in it at the time that the entire estate is settled.
Well, he's wondering though, what happens to it right now?
Yeah, does it physically get, the family takes it, or I?
It's in the
But
name
if it
of the
doesn't run-
decedent, right? It's in the name of the decedent, so it'd just go into it effectively become the ownership of the estate. Family would control it, but as the estate is ultimately decided and debts are paid, if there is income.
Yeah,
we
they
can
were on
put-
Medicaid, so Medicaid also has a right to claw back
Medicaid-
those assets as well, I believe.
They
right?
do, you have to notice Medicaid, the state of South Dakota is part of a probate, if a formal probate or informal probate is started. They would have to make notice of creditors, and if we were to file a lien, we would become one of the creditors, and it would all depend on first in time and how much is in the estate, so whether or not we're paid is,
Yeah. I
is
think
months down.
managing your office's limited resources is another important mandate we have. And based on that, I think that the previous commission's idea that generally if we think that somebody has a lot of assets, then we probably wouldn't approve the welfare.
Yeah, well,
request, or-
well, I think maybe that's the distinction too. If you read, I don't have that statute right in front of me. I can find it real quick. As it reads. It reads. Let me find it real quick. Well, for the sake of time, which we've all run short on, I can tell you essentially what it reads is it says if the family is unable, family or friend, the applicant is unable or unwilling to defray the cost. And so I think generally speaking, we're almost always dealing with situations where the family is unable to defray the cost. If a family is unwilling to defray the cost, that would be a different situation. If someone were to have, to be in a situation where maybe they're not even indigent, but no family's coming forward to take responsibility, then we'd have a situation where absolutely there would be, probate, there'd be assets in through that probate that maybe a lien maybe would be, worth our time, in my opinion, in the sense that we'd be able to collect back on that. But I haven't, at least these three, certainly I wouldn't expect that would be the case. I think this is a situation of, because of the resources of the decedent as well as the family, they're unable to make the payments.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Pose same sign, motion passes. Oh, Scott. Or you didn't have anything, I guess that's all that's on the agenda, so, Scott?
the most patient man of the day.
So I'm here to talk about the proposed safety center renovation. Our committee met the other day. We've adopted the pre-qualification method, if you will. So we've drafted up an RFQ, request for qualification. And the way that works, and Michael can correct me if I'm wrong, is this will go out, advertise like we would for a regular bid. And basically, there's no numbers involved at this step of the game. It's just tell us about your firm. And there's a scoring system that we'll use to score them. They come back and we bring the top three back to the commissioner, say, here's our top three. And we want to submit an RFP, request for proposal, that I'm currently working on now. The RFQ that I have here, Tyler Klatt started this with Tegra for the courtroom security project. I just more or less stole his verbiage and came up with a request for qualification for the safety center project. So and right now, I think we're going to roll it out as one document but two separate projects. I don't know, maybe after some more discussion, we'll just roll it out as two individual ones. I'm not quite sure there yet. But one thing that I know for sure and is required is there has to be a budget limit set for these projects, and that has to be in the RFQ along with quite a few different deadlines, which we've already chosen dates for those deadlines and stuff. So I guess with that, we got two proposals, like I said. The one is the courtroom security project, and that's a grant, and we have grant money in the sum of $261,604 for that project. So we talked about that, and I wanted to know if there was any money that the county could roll into that to bring the figure up a little higher. And also, we need a budget limit for this project.
Safety center.
Yeah.
Is the school security grant, is that I thought that was a match. Maybe I'm thinking of a different.
I think there is a match involved with it.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Is it 20%?
Mhm.
So if
20
we
or
spend that
25.
entire 162, the county would have to,
260.
oh, I'm sorry, right, 262, the county would have to match 20%.
So 55 or 50, 50 something.
So I guess that would be figured in there then, correct?
But I think we would need to add 20% on top. If we were to
Right.
go just at that base number, which is the grant of award, we need to add 20% on the top of that in order to, because that's what the county. Right. If we were to satisfy all of the grant funding that the state has sent our way, that's what it would look like.
Okay.
52, 320.
So there's, might have been $604.80. There's cents on there that just kind of dropped off, but
313. 924. You
313.
have that already?
I just did it on my head.
313 what?
12.
313, 924.
924. Okay,
So we make that one 315.
What's that?
Place around.
Sure. Make that the courtroom 315 then, just to. Yep.
I like that.
Because he said there was like $600 and some dollars or whatever. This should cover that. Yep.
This project though, is where I sent that email
Right.
for the number. We need a magic, some sort of a number.
So this is getting paid for with
what we're, I
interest.
guess what we're are willing to spend.
And the county always has the right to come back later and, you know, the
Yeah.
RFP process is gonna take place. The county pursuant to the document that's already been, put in place. The county has the right to reject all bids. And so this is just a number though that we have to include in the RFQ. And so it'd be nice to be in a good understanding of where that's at, today. Cause I'd hate to, for instance, have the number be, $5 million, and in reality, the county's not willing to expend anywhere close to that number, so it'd be.
Well, and also you don't want it to be like, $100,000, but the project's gonna cost $200,000 and we like have to go back to square one of the whole
All right.
deal. Correct. Yeah, so we need it to be high enough that it's definitely going to be above what we actually spend. But we want it to be low enough that we're correctly communicating to people the scale of work that we want done, right?
And the RFQ does a good job of that, and then there'll be like an opportunity for those folks to have a conversation with Scott. The RFP process is gonna be when they get to come in and really get their hands dirty with what they can do within the RFQ. And also, ultimately, I think the hope too is that, with it being competitive, they're not, they're gonna come in at the number that's gonna be
Right.
accurate rather than, most advantageous to them.
The point that was made was you don't want to make it too low,
Right.
because then some companies will say, oh, I'm not gonna.
Well, let's
mess with
just say
it."
it was 600,000. What happens if they come in at 700?
I think the budget,
That's a budget limit.
it's a budget limit, so it's a limit.
I hate this part because I hate telling them this is what we have to spend. Because I know what'll happen. When they do it. Well, yeah, if you say 600,000, they'll be at 580.
But they'll have to get competitive in the RFP in order to
Yeah,
get the
that's-
job.
That's just the thing. I mean, we had some questions around the RFP for the flap grant stuff, where firms were trying to feel out. Do you want us to see us get right up to $249,999? Or is it going to be more competitive if we come in with $150,000 because we're showing that we're being really efficient, and I was like, when I received those questions, I was like, you need to put your proposal together and we'll consider them all,
That's,
it didn't seem like an appropriate thing, but they were, certainly some of the firms were thinking about trying to go that route or wanted to say, well, we're gonna come in with a proposal that's showing that we're gonna be the more cost effective, so.
And, I don't know if this helps with the decision-making process, but looking into that a little bit further yesterday, there's two routes you can go on the RFP. You can go best price or best qualified.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
why we're
think-
going this process.
I would think I personally would like to go best qualified
I think
to
that's,
choose that firm.
that's the advantage of utilizing this design build process. I think that's ultimately exactly right, is, and best price may not be the best quality, right?
Right.
For the job. One thing that we had discussions on in the committee are, especially with the courtroom security project, if, that's gonna take a long time, the amount of time is very relevant on that project, and we can't allow that space to be out of commission for long periods of time if we can help it, because court's gonna have to get moved out of county. There could be expenses, there will be expenses to the county for moving court. Understanding, the historical significance of that project too is really important. And so this is a situation where we felt like design build was advantageous because we have that ability as a county to come up with a quantitative score that's not based solely off of a dollar. And the team also has the right pursuant to this. Scott did a good job of articulating what happens with the RFP, but if we get five quotes back in, we solicit the 5 back, that are all really good firms that we want to work with. We don't have to sever 2 right off the top. We have to work with at least 3 firms.
Okay.
So we have the right to say, hey, we want to get an RFP from 5 of you. If 5 come in that appear to be capable of handling the job too.
Yep.
So that could also create more leverage as it relates to final budget. Because
That's true.
This is we're just setting that limit, but then we're gonna work with, the actual dollar amounts that they're saying that they're gonna give us as a quote isn't gonna come in until after they have an opportunity to see the premises. We go through the RFP process.
We still have to have that number.
I'd
Yeah, I
like
was
it
just
to be-
gonna, well, and I was just about to look at you, Glenn, and be like,
I sent the email to you, so.
I'd like it to be 5, but I think we're gonna have to go 600.
how's that relate to the amount of interest we expect to generate?
As of right now, it's 0. We
Rhonda,
can't guarantee.
I was gonna say, do you know what we've gotten so far?
Yeah, we can't use it yet.
I don't. Documenting it until the first of this year, but I could go back on the statement. Come up with the get-go, get all those numbers, but, in the last 3 months, averaging between 50 and 60
A month?
a month.
And some of it will have to go back probably if
A
we
little bit.
overperform.
We can't necessarily use that money here.
We can't.
Not Tom Grimmon's gonna come down with Colliers in June or July and explain to us how that money can be used.
Okay, yeah, because I was excited when I heard that we might be able to use it for this. I thought it always interest on federal dollars have to get given back to the feds, but I was excited to
not all
hear that there
interest.
was.
So anything over the,
Oh, that's right, over,
over the bond. If we gain,
Oh, okay.
if we got interest, if we're paying, I think, 4.06, anything over 4.06
okay, there we
has to go
go.
back to
Yeah,
the
yep,
feds.
okay.
But Tom was going to explain some ideas he has for that money, to where we could be able to use it possibly. Carrie had come up with a list of the dollar amount that we had spent prior to the bond. And you pulled that back, correct? That was 361,000.
Yep.
So that number, that 361,000, I was hoping we could use here. So then either gonna be 140,000 or 240,000. We gotta come up with from somewhere to get to the 500,000 or 600,000.
The other, I mean, this is always something that can be tabled and wait. The problem I will say though, that we're running into as the committee when we met is as we start looking at these, I don't have that sheet in front of me, but these
A lot of
deadlines.
deadlines, yeah.
A lot of deadlines, a lot of opportunity for, we have to give people an opportunity to create these documents. We have to advertise. We're talking to being into June already before we can start asking for an RFP. So
About 5 weeks.
Well, I
all the
think,
Steps.
yeah, if 600,000 seems like high ballpark, then I'm comfortable setting that as a budget limit.
Sure hope that's high.
Yeah. If, and I guess it's the degree of confidence that we have that that's high ballpark, I mean, I think if that's gonna, if we should be able to do what we need to do well under that amount, then let's just throw that out there and keep the ball rolling, but.
If that amount holds true by June, we should be close.
Oh, no,
Don't count the interest.
we really just at this
Don't-
point, just
don't-
looking at
yeah.
how much do we need.
We've got
what's the cost to do the
361
work we
right
need
now.
to do.
And I don't know how much is left in the building fund, if much.
I don't know off the top of my head. I wanna say, I mean, there's probably easily 100,000.
And 53 of that's gonna go to the courtroom. So we're about 400,000, so we're either 100 or 200,000 off.
And I don't know, I mean, I have no idea, maybe Scott would be the person, if anyone in this room has an idea of where the dollar amount's gonna impact what actually occurs as far as renovations go. But I'd hate to be, I only say this because this is a budget limit, and so if we put this number somewhere that isn't feasible, we're gonna have to start this process all over again, and we're 5 weeks out, and this might be a winter of 2026. So on that note, perhaps it would be better to solicit these bids separately, so that
Might
you can have
be.
a lot better idea of what we're dealing with.
Might
with-
be,
With the courtroom.
approach it one at a time, one project at a time, one this year and start the safety center in 2026. I know nobody wants to hear that. That's, wants to get out of an office, but that
We
might
don't
be.
have to do the courtroom first, do we?
We don't have to, I'm just saying that if we solicit these together and we have two different RFQs prepared, but they're one document. And so if we,
Can't you just put option A, option B?
as I'm saying, we need to just distinguish, the ability to pull these apart well, so that we can continue working with contractors on one project if the other project's budget becomes feasible. Would hate to have everything get delayed. That's worst case scenario. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But it probably does make sense to ensure that we can work the projects independently if it becomes necessary.
I did make a note in there and obviously have Michael proofread it too, but I made a note in there that these are two separate projects, two separate funding sources, and they could not be combined. But I mean, it's really hard to throw a dollar amount on here. I mean, I'm sure there's codes and whatever out there, or we're gonna breach a dollar amount that says, okay, you're spending this much on your renovation, you have to upgrade your fire alarm system. You have to bring in your fire sprinkler, which would be advantageous if we did both, but I mean,
You've seen what that can add.
right now, okay, well, we're in here and we got everything stripped out. Let's get the cast iron plumbing out of here was spec'd in here in the eighties. I mean, that, you see what I'm saying? Where do you kind of end it?
The cast iron safety center?
Yeah, in the safety center.
Well, so that pretty much will be
I mean, that,
with the
that's,
demolition.
I mean, a lot of it's, exposed down here if you drop the ceiling. Be the time to get it out and put in Schedule 40 and yeah, I would hope 600 would do it. Because there's not a lot going on as far as, oh, there's a fair amount of walls up in here coming down. I can't remember the number of linear feet. I measured it off yesterday. Over on the PD side, there's like one wall coming down and adding on to a wall over there. I mean, that's kind of pretty minimal over there, but yeah.
And you may have to split that separate between sheriff and PD. I mean,
Maybe we could solicit, I think, 3 RFQs.
cause yours is, the police side is a usable space right now.
It is.
I mean, it may not be exactly what that person wants or you want.
Right.
It's usable. And I would hate to spend too much over there that we didn't get the sheriff's side done. If it caused that problem.
Yep.
So maybe we should break it out into 3 then.
Yeah, it's a way we could do it. We just have to come up with 3 budget numbers though.
Yeah, it's almost better to
Well,
do this than
Can
two.
you just use the same budget number and then just
Here,
and make them an option?
well, yeah, my thought was like with the whole law enforcement center together, then if we're saying maybe the police department side, maybe we could get by with it kind of the way it is mostly, or it's mostly usable. If we think, okay, well, let's set a number that allows us to renovate the whole dang thing, and then that way, if the sheriff's side ends up costing more, we would have an area that would be usable, we could back out of, we could be like, all right, well, actually, we're gonna need to, in order to fit under this budget limit, we're gonna need to like focus all of our attention on the sheriff's side.
Cause another thing too is you bring them in on this sheriff's side, we're about to wrap up. We're getting close. We can say, hey, we got X number of dollars left. I'm sure that PD side would probably hopefully be under that threshold where we have to go seek bids. Hey, while you're here,
We just need to like open this
yeah,
people facing window up a little more.
Right,
add
yeah,
another
yeah,
layer or
yeah,
something.
That gets tricky because it talks about essentially you can't cut up the project and to get around the 150.
so you couldn't even put that in as part of the project then.
Probably not while it's all taking place at the same time. Now, if we're 6 months removed from the completion of a project, it's a totally different completion, project, then would be okay. But I mean, you think how it works in reality is if they're here and it's all one project, and I think it probably would constitute where the 150 threshold is for the entire scope of the project.
Okay.
You can't cut it up.
We wouldn't be over 100 over there, would we?
I wouldn't
On
think
the
so.
police
Police
side?
side?
Yeah.
Who knows anymore?
As harder as there is, really hard to tell.
I mean, look at the bid we just got for.
Yeah, there's an order of magnitude, so
That's
mean,
what I'm
could
thinking.
be
Yeah,
somewhere
you
between
just avoid
60
it
to
altogether.
600,000 for this project.
Make it like the door project, do so that was 100, the 100 is the threshold, right?
150.
Oh, 150?
But it would need to be done at a separate time, is you can't cut it up. You can't say, hey, we're doing courtroom project here, we're doing this room here, we're doing this room here, and it, total 200,000 and just say, oh, each one of these rooms is only 50. So 50, 50, 50, 50 is 200. You can't say they're each $50,000 projects if it's all being done under the scope of one project, one construction company, at the same time, at the same building site.
Well, you're saying 150,000?
I think it's 150.
Thought it was 100, unless they just.
Yeah, I thought it was
raised
100. I thought it used to be.
They might have raised it.
I thought it was just 50. I thought
No,
you had multiple votes.
But I thought they
50 is
went up.
for, 50 is for
They talked
equipment.
What's that?
50 is for equipment.
It
Think
is.
it is 100.
Does it fall under professional services? Professionals.
Got it. Okay, it's 100,000. So they did change it because they upped it. I think it's $100,000 for public improvement projects and $50,000 for purchasing, other than professional services.
So if you just did the sheriff's side, to see what that bid was. If they were here, can you be like, we want carpet and paint over here, what's that gonna cost us?
I'm just saying, if it's happening by the same construction company at the same time, while they're also doing other work in
In the
you're
same
gonna be
structure.
violating, I mean, you're gonna be absolutely required to constitute that as one project.
How do people feel about 600,000? Or do we want to wait a week and come back to that?
I think that's where it's gonna have to be.
All right, I make a motion that we set the budget limit to 600,000 for the law enforcement center improvement projects, and that we set the budget limit to 315,000 for the courtroom security.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do not intend that to mean that we must spend $600,000 on this. I mean that as a limit, so, yep.
Hearing no other further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
I have, is there any other need for me? I have a 12:30 that I have to make.
Yeah, I got a 1 PM. I'm hoping we can.
This should be
wrap
fast.
this up.
So jail and law enforcement center, the new parking lot. It's over the 100,000 where I can make the decision. So we added a parking lot
Oh, got you. Thank
in
you.
the back. I don't know, what would it be on the southwest side of the building? Between the garage and the actual jail portion. There's an open space, so it'll be like staff parking back there. And if the day came when we added the other jail, then it gets tore out.
We can throw out. Okay.
So it's a good deal to have it done.
And we're doing good budget wise
Yes.
still, right?
Yep.
So is
Yeah, the
this
money's
fitting,
there.
this is fitting within budget?
Yep.
And are we still projected to come in under budget?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, you're doing good on that. I really, really appreciate it, Travis. This is, yep. People ask me about that one all the time, and I name drop our bulldog that we got over there, making sure that people pinch their pennies, so.
So
100,000, you said?
130.
130.
It seems appropriate to me.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve that additional $130,000 expense at the parking lot.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes. Now, if I hear anything different tomorrow on the budget, I can kill it.
All right.
Let's see, monthly reports.
Oh,
for
wait,
review.
one other question. Does that change, we already approved it, but does that change like the impervious area? I know there's a lot of discussions about making sure that we had like adequate drainage storage.
We've got adequate.
So that it doesn't make any problem with that.
If the day ever came to where they added on, we've already got the.
Right, okay, because this would have been within the footprint of where we were thinking of adding on anyway, and we've already calculated out all the
Yeah.
drainage needs for that. Okay, thank you, Travis. Yeah.
The monthly reports, everybody get to see those? I just gave the building project updates, which we'll have another meeting tomorrow. Dave's not here for joint. Any other commissioner reports?
I've got a Clay County Youth Trust Fund meeting scheduled for May 12th at 5:30, so we're gonna review whatever there is there.
I'd be doing scholarships.
Yep. Usually the bulk of the meeting, so. Handful of requests.
Drone committee met, but it was pretty, there wasn't much in the last quarter. It was a pretty quiet quarter, so
Which one was that?
the drone.
Oh. And we don't have anything for executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So excited.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion passes.